I'm so upset. Oh my God.
Let's see how Earth responds to that.
Welcome to the Young Turks. Jake Huger, John Idarola with you guys. Crazy show today because a little bit later in the program, Donald Trump trying to interfere with the midterm elections. Super dangerous. Got to talk about that. And also Jonathan Greenblatt from the Anti-Defamation League, which has now become the pro-bigotry, pro-genocide league. It has hilarious conditions for his for the idea of having a conversation with Hasan Piker, or presumably anyone who's a critic of Israel. So we'll show you what those preconditions are, which is hilarious. And then the right wing continues their massive melee, Tucker Carlson versus Ben Shapiro again today. So that's a big fight that they've got going on. And obviously we've got huge news on the Iran war, which is what we're gonna do in a second. John Idarola, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. Sorry I can't be in studio today. I'm feeling a little bit sick and I didn't want to risk your health. Also, if I could make a bold prediction, I don't think Hasan's going to agree to the preconditions because they're ridiculous.
You might be right. And then of course, as usual, cable news anchors obsessed with Israel's right to exist. The Palestinians can all go die, no one cares, but Israel right to exist as if it's in any kind of jeopardy. Anyways, you guys all know cable news anchors all work for Israel. Anyways, so we'll get to that in a second, but let's start with this most important story.
For all the people out there who've been crapping on our relationship with Israel and what we do with Israel and our alliance with Israel, they gave us intelligence to help us keep our president from being assassinated. That's a good thing.
Yeah, did they? Did they? So yet another piece of intelligence from the Israelis that coincidentally helps their own cause, which is to push us further into this war with Iran. Well, John, is this intelligence we should be concerned about?
I think they'd love it if we were, if that meant that we would shut up and go along with what they want to do, but I'm not so sure. But let's run through the actual evidence, what we know about this supposed plot. So earlier this week, during the NATO summit in Turkey, Trump said that there was an active assassination plot targeting, which you can see here.
I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I don't really care because I'm doing my job and I'm doing it, I hope, better than anybody's ever done it, because we have a country that's hot and really, really successful. But I mention it only because it's on the list. I mean, it came out. There was another list came out yesterday, and I'm number one on. I like being number one on TikTok better, but I'm number one on the list for killing.
I think like the few remaining neurons in his brain that are still capable of firing have latched onto, if I say something's on a list, it's more interesting, it's more compelling. So now I'm on TikTok and also Iran. But anyway, is he actually on their list? Well, maybe in a general sense, but he's not speaking generally. He means very specifically. And apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, it was Israel once again, which came to Donald Trump at a crucial moment in this conflict and said, hey, they're trying to kill you. Should freak out now, maybe get violent. They know Donald Trump, they know how he responds to things. Now, interestingly, the Wall Street Journal has they don't know the evidence. Like Israel said there's a plot. Maybe they have evidence, maybe they don't. We're dumb peasants, we don't get to know. We just get to be dragged along into a forever war. You should know though, that Israel has frequently provided evidence that it turned out was fully fake and they knew that it wasn't real to manipulate our government into acting in ways that they want. So not too long ago, there was a presentation in the Situation Room at the White House by Benjamin Netanyahu. And him and his team outlined conditions that they portrayed as pointing to near certain victory over Iran. Iran's ballistic missile program could be destroyed in a few weeks. The regime would be so weakened that it could not choke off the Strait of Hormuz, and the likelihood that Iran would land blows against US interests in neighboring countries was assessed as minimal. Obviously, that's not how it worked out in the end. And I guess their presentation was so compelling for Trump that he ignored our entire the military generals, the intelligence apparatus that were all saying they're not gonna just fall. We're not gonna be able to stop them from doing damage in the Strait of Hormuz. In addition, though, it wasn't just what we could do to them, it's what would happen inside of their borders. So Mossad's intelligence indicated, according to Benjamin Netanyahu, that street protests inside Iran would begin again, and with the impetus of the Israeli spy agency helping to foment riots and rebellion, an intense bombing campaign could foster the conditions for the Iranian opposition to overthrow the regime, which obviously blessedly happened several months ago. I'm kidding. By the way, they knew that that wasn't true, and their own internal assessments were that it would just lead to absolutely massive massacres of Iranian civilians. But those are the eggs, I guess, that must be broken to make the omelet of the foreign policy that Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to see in the world. Now, all of these lies have been very clear, whether some choose to recognize it or not. Thankfully, some are. Ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, Representative Adam Smith, could be on that list. Take a look.
What's your sense about these new reports that Israel told the US that there's a new Iranian plot to try to kill the president?
Well, it's very hard to tell. I mean, certainly Iran has made the statement, as your guest said, since the killing of Soleimani, over 6 years ago now. It's also easy to see that Israel would want to sort of buck up Trump, make him more willing to take on Iran more strongly. Netanyahu has been, pushing for that tougher stance, a more hawkish approach to Iran for quite some time. Now, crucially, without any clear plan for how that's going to turn into some sort of success in terms of fundamentally breaking the Iranian regime. But Israel certainly has that interest. So it's hard to know. It's hard to know exactly what that intel is. I mean, the bigger problem, as you pointed out, the ceasefire has broken down. We don't seem to have a plan going forward for how to achieve our objectives or even to stop the conflict.
Yeah, there's absolutely no plan in this war that we were told. You guys are being crazy to call it a forever war. 2 to 3 weeks tops, easy peasy lemon squeezy. It's now 4.5 months, and it's in worse condition than it was a couple of months ago, Cenk.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll continue if Trump believes that he has his own reasons. They're coming after me, and he wants to make them pay.
Yeah, that's certainly what the Israelis want him to think. So in a little bit, I'm going to tell you how I think Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump Jr. saved Trump's life. So that's an interesting topic. But look at that, guys. That is a significant development. Adam Smith, a very normally very corporate, very defense-friendly, Israel-friendly Democrat who's the head of the Armed Services Committee for the Democrats, now saying on cable news, maybe the Israeli intelligence isn't true. I mean, that is unprecedented in my lifetime, that an American politician is allowed to insinuate that maybe the Israelis aren't telling the truth. So, I mean, for us, that's the most obvious thing in the world. But Washington is so thoroughly controlled by Israel, to have someone who's a member of the establishment break ranks like 2%. It's like, whoa, wow. Israel must really be losing some degree of leverage inside DC, and that's of course because of the elections that happened in New York and Colorado, where now the Democrats are afraid of losing their seats if they're too friendly with Israel. But John, look, is it possible that Iranians would want to kill Donald Trump? Well, of course it's possible. I mean, we killed all of their leaders. We killed, not only did Trump order the assassination of Qasem Soleimani in his first term, which is their top general, but now he's killed the Grand Ayatollah and 48 other members. So I like the idea that we should be outraged by that is also kind of ridiculous. I mean, we killed their leaders. What do you think that they would want to do to our leaders? Like, is anyone in their right mind saying like, this is an outrage? We get to murder anyone we like in their regime. How dare they try to retaliate? Okay, but having said that, is it fake anyway? Of course it's fake. Number one, it comes from the Israelis. And I'll add to what John said a second ago. At the beginning of this war, they said that the Iranians would not be able to close the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, that was the easiest thing in the world for the Iranians to do. The Israelis were theoretically 100% wrong. If I'm the president of the United States or I'm a cable news anchor, I think I dismiss them out of hand. If anyone in Norway, Nicaragua came and said, "Oh, we're positive that they cannot close the Strait of Hormuz," and then they close it instantly, I'd be like, well, obviously I'm not trusting them. Not whether they're good guys or bad guys doesn't matter. The information they're giving me is utter crap, right? They also said, "Oh, regime change will be easy," and now it's turned out that it's impossible. But I mean, we've gotten fake intelligence from Israel so many times, it's unbelievable, right? Yeah. And I'm celebrating that there's one person on TV from the establishment who's saying, maybe we should be a tiny bit skeptical about it. Of course, where do we get the fake intelligence to Iraq attack? Israel. Where do we always get the fake intelligence? Israel. But John, here comes the hilarious part. So they say that not only did they want to kill Trump, but they claim that the Iranians had signs threatening to kill other prominent Americans. And you know who they were, John? Ben Shapiro and Laura Loomer. People in Iran know Laura Loomer? Hold on, it gets more absurd. Miriam Adelson, an Iranian villager, knows about Miriam Adelson. Hold on, Mark Dubowitz. I barely know who Mark Dubowitz is.
I don't know who that is, actually.
Yeah, like Persians are like, "Oh, we gotta get Mark Dubowitz." This is such obvious Mossad propaganda. Remember, Mossad said before the war, "Oh, we're in the streets next to you, protesters. Go get them," etc. I mean, they've confessed 18 times over that they've infiltrated the protesters and the marches in Iran. So Mossad writes out these hilarious things. "We would like to kill Mark Dubowitz." Yeah, everybody knows Mark Dubowitz, right? Because we Israelis know him. He's one of our assets inside America that gets America to do everything we want. So I'm sure the Iranians are going to want to kill him. Not one person in Iran has heard of Mark Dubowitz. So this is the level of inanity, and then everyone in Washington takes it seriously. Oh, there's intelligence to kill Trump. Oh, the Israelis have intelligence. The Israelis are obvious, preposterous liars. Their government is.
I don't know about the Dubowitz. Ben Shapiro's, I guess, pretty famous. Maybe I buy. Some of them might be familiar with Laura Loomer. Hypothetically, sleep paralysis demons occur across all societies, but I don't know that they necessarily are using it to model their foreign policy. The entire thing is crazy. I was going to make a similar point to you about how naive are we supposed to be? Where we're supposed to be like, oh no, they're going to try to take out Trump. How could they? Are we babies? We're at war with them. Now you might think, well, there are bounds of reason inside of war. And I would say maybe there were, hypothetically, there aren't anymore, thanks to us and thanks to Israel. We have been going around the world murdering and kidnapping political leaders. We have made clear, if you're strong enough to do it, decapitate their leadership. Just do it. We literally did it to Iran. We've threatened to do it since then. Israel has done it all over the region. We do not get to be naive or cutesy about Iran doing it. So at this point, he's the one who continues the war. I don't care if there's a plot. We're in a war. They'll try to hurt us any way that they can in the same way that we will. And in fact, we make crazier claims than they do. I don't frequently see Iranian leaders saying that we're gonna try to blow up every bridge and desalinization plant in the United States. We're the one threatening war crimes against civilians, not them these days. And that's why I do think that it's a plot. It's a manipulation of Trump because he fundamentally believes that he is the only actual person in the world. He cares about himself, his fifis get hurt. And you can see them already reacting to it, not only with the attacks on Iran, but now there's reporting that all these new fortifications and security measures are going up around the White House as a result of this. They're fencing off the streets around, they're fencing off the parks around. I'm sure they're gonna be talking about how this is even more justification for ballroom. We gotta have our drone-proof ballroom or whatever. And maybe it's even for this. And maybe it's also, in case people get rowdy after the midterms are stolen or the 2028 presidential election is called off or something like that. But I don't buy it and I don't care.
Yeah, well, it's totally working. It's totally inside Trump's head. So here's a comment he did today, graphic 4. No, Israel came up with nothing. No, I've been number one on Iran's kill list for a long time, and it's the way life is. I've been on their list for a long time. That's what we're dealing with. The only thing is, I've left instructions, if anything happens, to just literally bomb them at levels that they've never seen before. So he's like, yeah, I'm totally calm. I'm totally calm. But if they kill me, murder them all. Okay, you don't look calm. You're not acting calm. and how? I mean, look at this. So there's an ongoing debate: is Donald Trump like super dumb and actually believes the Israelis, or this is all a game? They're all on the same side. They're all pretending. I think the answer is a little bit of both. And I think that in situations like this, as you see Trump panicking, I think he does genuinely believe the Israelis to some degree, and that is preposterously dumb. Like, only the dumbest people on earth would believe the Israeli government, especially when their entire national interest is dependent on Trump being mad at Iran and restarting the war. I mean, any person with like in the double digits in IQ would go, all right, I'm gonna look at what Israel is saying with incredible skepticism here, because they have their own national interests, they're massively biased, and they lied to us before every time, but certainly in the beginning of this war massively. But it seems like Trump is not looking at it skeptically. Israel tells him like, oh yeah, the Iranians are looking to kill you. He's like, what? Kill them all if I'm dead, right?
Yeah.
Fortify the White House with pillows and cushions and what is this? By the way, what an unbelievable like coward and again idiot. Like, you killed their leaders. The first thing I would assume is that they would try to kill me if I was in that situation. But apparently he's so arrogant and dumb that he didn't. What, did you not think about that? Now in hindsight, he's like, oh, yeah, I was always number one on their list. Oh, whatever, dude. By the way, the source is the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch is one of the biggest Zionists in the world. When it comes to war in Israel, I have never seen a Rupert Murdoch publication not lie. They lie about 100% of the time. But look, if anyone was going to kill Donald Trump, had the access, the ability, and the ability to get away with it, there is a different country and that would be super happy to do that as a false flag operation.
Madagascar.
Yeah, nailed it. That's because you never know, because it could be Madagascar running Washington. It could be Finland. It could be Israel. No, it can't be Israel. Anyways, look, John, here's the thing. I know some in traditional media and stuff will be outraged by this, but no, I don't think the Israelis have any qualms, any moral boundaries at all. They just murdered 23,000 children. You think like they draw the line at an ally? What ally? They've stolen everything we have. That's how they built their nukes, etc. Right? So like that's the thing that a lot of people are missing. The government of Israel, no bottom to that barrel. They have no moral balance at all. So would they kill one of our leaders? I don't think they would hesitate. So that leads me to why Tucker Carlson and Don Jr. maybe potentially saved Trump's life, which is that they got him to appoint JD Vance or pick JD Vance as his VP. And apparently the Israelis are not 100% sure about Vance. If Rubio was his VP as he was planning, at some point there's some chance Rubio would have been president. Because if you put someone who's 200% in favor of Israel as your VP, it was nice knowing you.
Yeah, I'll try to be super fast. And the only other point I want to make, when there were people who were concerned that Donald Trump would not want to become president again, he'd want to be some sort of authoritarian leader. It wasn't just that he'll come in and do a bunch of illegal stuff, which of course he's doing. It's that the rest of the government becomes utterly irrelevant, even if he controls the rest of it. So if he thinks that tariffs are a good idea, it doesn't matter if literally everyone else thinks that they're a terrible idea. It doesn't even matter if they're shown to be a terrible idea. His whim is going to drive our entire, like trade policy. If he thinks that this war is a good idea, or if he's been manipulated by Israel to think the war is a good idea, maybe just save his own life or whatever, we just continue it. Even if it's like wrecking the GOP's electoral chances, even if his base despises it, it's harming the economy. I'm fairly certain in our life, there has never been a presidency where their whim drove domestic and foreign policy against all sense, against the will of their own party, against their base, against many of their donors in a lot of cases. Not universally, like for instance, Israel obviously has an interest in the war, but it's that And he controls the Senate, and he controls the House, and he controls the Supreme Court, but that doesn't even matter. His whim is all that matters across all of these different issue areas. That was the concern, and it's unfortunately playing out. Anyway, that's it for me. Yeah.
Yep.
Why don't we take our first break? I know that we do have more on what's going on with Iran. We'll get to that after this break.
All right, let's go to our members on TYT.com. Burrito Bandito says Israel invented that Iranian plot to kill Trump. Totally, 100%. I mean, you got the degree to which you have to be a sucker to believe the Israeli government is indescribable. Bloated Ego says Israel's not serious about peace, and we are Israel's cucks. Ergo, we are not for peace. I sure am disgusted to say this, but it is believable. I'd rather see Iran focus on hitting Israel, make them use up their defenses. I heard Iran has a lot of cheap drones to use. If and or until we extricate ourselves from Israel, this country is going to continue to devolve, and every US citizen has been, is, and will continue to pay for this, maybe even with our lives. And but the cable news guys and mainstream media, they don't think that you're fully human, or the Palestinians or Lebanese are fully human. The only thing they're obsessed about, as you'll see later in the show, is Israel, do they have a right to exist? Are they okay? Are they all been fluffed? Okay, who's fluffing them today? We have to do war for them. Okay, no, we don't. No, we don't. You guys are all monsters. So, and they're like, oh, we are the ones who care about bigotry. Everyone's an anti-Semite. Okay, no you don't. You hate Muslims, you hate Arabs, all the cable news guys, they're all disgusting racists. All right, Stephen Phoenix 6549 YouTube member says, if you Americans don't stop this lunatic, he will destroy the world economies and send every country into darkness, which is Israel's plan. Hurry up, folks, the world needs you guys to stop this. Well, Stephen, you're totally right, but we can't.
I understand sports really well, and he gave him a red card. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think it meant much.
Such a funny clip that Bart just played. All right, we're back on the Young Turks, Jake. I understand sports really well. I mean, I don't know what a red card is, but or a field goal. I don't know. Okay.
I understand sports really well, and he gave him a red card. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think it meant much.
I know what it means. That's how bad it is.
No one knows sports better than me. 3-pointer, never heard of it. Okay.
What's it worth?
All right, thank you to DJ Dini, who just became a member through tyt.com/join. You get a couple of months off of when you go annual membership on tyt.com/join. Plus, I read your comments during the ad breaks if you're watching on the tyt.com/join member stream. So check that out when you get a chance. Okay, now let's go to the next story. All right, now that there's a little bit of question in the air about are we going back into war? Is this a temporary bombing, or is it going to be full-scale war again? The cable news anchors, particularly in conservative media in this case, Fox News, Newsmax, and the others, foaming at the mouth. We're going to show it to you in a second. Like war, right? So remember when this war goes disastrously that you should hate these people. So John, tell us about it.
100%. Well, according to Trump, it's on whenever he wants it to be. At least that's what he implies in this post. The Islamic Republic of Iran, no word on Japan, has asked us to continue talks. We have agreed to do so, but the United States has stated to them in no uncertain terms that the capital C ceasefire is over. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Oh my God, the president wrote that? I'm glad that he noted that at the end of it. Anyway, yeah, so the ceasefire is over, we're done. Which means that we can keep bombing them, although literally nothing will stop us from doing that. And also, presumably, I guess, they can keep bombing our allies in the region. They can bomb our own bases, although we'll probably never hear about the injuries or the destruction of property. And also, I guess if you were trying to get a ship through there, you don't have to worry that you could be blown up at any moment. So wonderful. We've gone that far back. And apparently, as a result of the fact that the war's back on, Fox News, right-wing media has been flooded with bloodthirsty warmongers calling for just any and all escalations, up to even the point of nuclear strikes, as you'll see.
We've destroyed 85% of their defense industrial base. Let's destroy 100% of it. Let's set them back to the Stone Age and militarily, and then declare victory, open the strait by force, reimpose the blockade, and declare victory. And then help the Iranian people overthrow the regime.
The one thing nobody wants is boots on the ground. But I don't see how you get the straits open, rid of the IRGC, and the nuclear material secreted in a way that we can definitely say it's all out of there without putting eyes on. I just don't see it.
Have a legitimate discussion of the threshold of a nuclear strike. And again, let them, and like, oh, if you're gasping right now, I know. But when you've put friends in bags because of these people in Iran, you have a bit of different perspective on this. Look, if you're a purple-haired barista who's never even so much as had to pay rent and because you live with your parents in their basement, you're writing articles for other liberals to read, let me see if I can find Fs to give less about your opinions.
Yeah, I was gonna say that it would be a bad idea to nuke another country, but I guess I'm just being a dumb lib. I mean, I do technically not live with my parents anymore, so maybe I'm allowed to think that starting a nuclear war is a bad idea. But even if that you consider that an extreme position, Cenk, which I assume you do, boots on the ground is like the most common talking point. Taking it over. Now we're not just gonna get rid of like the leadership. The entire RGC has to go. We're now back to talking about arming the Iranians to hopefully stand them up so they can be massacred. It's like we're in day one of this thing all over again.
Yeah, I want to congratulate Carl Higbie on being the dumbest and most violent and disgusting cable news anchor. That is a hard award to win.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's on Newsmax, so that makes some degree of sense. So in the longer version of that segment, he kept calling the Iranians savages as he talked about murdering their children. So he repeatedly, there's these savages, all they understand is violence. That's why you have to murder them all. You have to drop a nuke on them, right? And hey, Carl, do you know what happens in a nuke? I know you don't care because you're basically a terrorist. Like a really disgusting, immoral terrorist, sympathizer, enabler, supporter, and God knows what you've actually done in your life. So when you drop a nuke, Carl, it burns everyone alive, let alone the radiation, which then melts off people's skin, gives them cancer and kills them. I know you're so ignorant, you probably don't know anything. I don't know how you function in this world. So when that happens, grandmothers are incinerated, aunts, uncles, daughters, children, all incinerated, burned alive. Babies burned alive. Pregnant women burned alive. And this Carl, I guarantee if you ask that moron Carl Higbie, like, oh, I'm pro-life, man. Yeah, you gotta make sure women have no rights at all, because I'm pro-life. Oh, but you just said to incinerate pregnant women and babies who were just born. Yeah, because they're savages. They're savage babies. And you don't have to respect their lives. Their lives don't mean anything. You see how we're the good guys? Me and Israel, man. We slaughter and kill all their kids. And that's why they're the savages. Carl, you look like such an idiot. You look like the dumbest, most vicious person I've ever seen. You sicken me. You're not an American. Americans are good, moral, decent people who care about the value of life. We care about human rights. We care about decency. But you're none of those things. You're the equivalent of a Nazi. Nazis say, let's kill everyone. And so that's what Carl Higbie is. He's a piece of crap. He's filth. But all of these anchors, I watched all their clips. I mean, Fox News and all the right-wing cable, it's unbelievable. Let's bomb it back to the Stone Ages. says a guy from the Stone Ages. Oh, we'll just open the strait by force. So guys, I just want you to remember this. So look, we get it. They're evil people. Everyone you just saw in those clips are the most immoral people in the country. That's why Rupert Murdoch and the other owners of those stations were like, we need somebody who has no brain at all, but is like deeply evil. So we can make them cable news anchors so they could tell everyone that we have to go to war for Israel no matter what the costs are to the American people. Get fellow Americans killed on behalf of Israel, make them spend trillions of dollars on behalf of Israel. Oh look, there's Carl Higbie, he's perfect. His IQ is 0 and he's one of the most immoral people in the country. Perfect, let's put him on air, right? So, but remember, not only their immorality, I want you to remember how wrong they were. So look, at this point, Israel's got the advantage again, and they're pushing, and there's Trump, they're gonna kill you. It's gonna be easy. It's gonna be easy. Let's just reopen the Strait of Hormuz. So easy. Every one of them is like, oh yeah, reopen the Strait. You think we wouldn't have reopened the Strait of Hormuz if we could? You think Trump's like, you know what? I don't feel like it. Oh, it's easy, but I don't want to do. I don't want to win. No, it's super hard. And now, if you notice, they're like, maybe ground troops, maybe nukes. And so when the gas prices explode again, when the economy collapses, remember all the evil idiots who brought you this war and betrayed you on behalf of a foreign country.
Yeah, 100%. It's just, it's wild to see a bunch of it. Like we got, those are collated by Media Matters. They do a great job of watching all this nonsense so regular people with actual lives don't have to. And it's just wild, the stuff that is just you have to say to maintain a career in right-wing media like that. Literally saying, and also like what you have to pretend to believe, like the kayfabe of right-wing politics. So that dude is like, if you don't think we should nuke Iran, kill millions of civilians, Tehran is one of the most densely populated places on the earth, then you're just a purple-haired barista. Dude, like this is copium. This is a wildly unpopular war. But in his mind, only radical Brooklyn Democrats don't support this. But he knows better. He knows it's like the least popular war in American history that he's actually defending. But again, if they don't say this stuff, they will be fired. For the reasons that you've described. It is a pathetic and sorry existence that they live. The stuff they either have to pretend to believe so that they don't get their asses, thrown out on the street, or the stuff that they're actually dumb enough to really believe. I don't know which of those is more pathetic, honestly. I think it's a pretty tight race.
I just one quick comment before we go on. Like, guys, he's saying basically, if you have purple hair and you're a barista, that you're worse than a guy who just suggested murdering millions of innocent people and their children. Yeah, I'll take the purple hair barista any day over an animal, a moron, and a traitor like Carl Higbie.
Yeah, I want to make one quick final point. Think about what they're making clear without saying explicitly. Donald Trump has so screwed us over with this stupid war that according to this guy, the only way out is we gotta nuke them. Just to get back to the status quo that we had 4.5 months ago, when the strait was open and ships could go through and the price of oil wasn't skyrocketing and all that. Donald Trump has so effed us over that we have to remind everyone that we're the only country who's ever done it. We'll do it again. We'll kill millions of people to save Donald Trump from this titanic, monumental failure that he's nose planted us into. Anyway, do we want to move on to our next story? You want to take another break?
No, let's do it. Okay. Let's move to the next.
Let's move. Okay, all right, let's do it.
Let's watch.
Deserve to be reduced to a headline of Mexican man shot and killed by ICE. He deserved to live a quiet life as Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, a husband, a father, and a job creator for dozens of men who also wanted the American dream.
That's right.
All right, that was the son of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, and he has been killed, and he was the wrong man. So ICE has done it again. John's got the details.
Exactly, yeah, the wrong man, by all accounts, a good man, and the latest reminder that when you flood America's streets with totally unaccountable, heavily armed, jackbooted thugs, inevitably they begin gunning people down. And so they have. And so he was a 52-year-old native of Mexico who's lived here for 35 years, longer than many of the people watching this video will have been alive themselves. That was the time he spent in the United States. Him and his wife had 3 children. They're all United States citizens, at least until the Supreme Court gives Donald Trump the right to strip it away, I guess. He was a construction business owner who was just months away from obtaining a work permit for legal residency. He was going through the process, the legal process, the way you're supposed to, and he had no previous criminal record, which, the same can't be said for quite a few people serving the United States government right now, including the president. According to his family, the morning that he was murdered, he followed his normal morning routine. He got up at the crack of dawn, brushed his teeth, drank coffee, and then picked up his workers to head to a construction site. In evenings at the home that he built, he would typically sit by the porch with his dog after eating the dinner his wife had made. So as on so many other days, he was on his way to work in a white work van with 3 other individuals, including his younger brother, Victor, when an unmarked vehicle started following him. And imagine if you realized that an unmarked vehicle was for some reason following you. Well, an ICE spokesperson says that officers were trying to pull over a vehicle as part of a targeted enforcement operation, which is, it's one of the standard Orwellian, tropes that they use. They said the driver of the vehicle they tried to pull over, Lorenzo, tried to get away. Investigators say that he rammed into an ICE vehicle and refused to follow orders. They also said he tried to weaponize his vehicle and run over another officer, yet another of their Orwellian terms. Federal officials said the officer opened fire in self-defense. They always say that. During the incident, and Salgado was struck. He was taken to an area hospital where he was later pronounced dead. Now, they have not provided any evidence of any of this, by the way. No images, no video. They weren't wearing body cameras. There's no evidence of damage to their vehicles, supposedly. I imagine if they were gonna try to prove that he'd rammed them, it was that he rammed the front of their car with the side of his, I guess. And according to the men in the car, everything that the ICE has said about this incident was 100% untrue. And so according to these sources, he encountered ICE agents as he picked up the last members of his crew. And then because his van and tools had been stolen in the past, he was obviously cautious about being followed. It's one reason why, if you're in law enforcement, maybe don't routinely drive around in unmarked cars and black bag people without any identification. It's a bad idea for a lot of reasons. When the van accelerated as the light turned green, the unfamiliar vehicle pulled out onto the shoulder, accelerated, and then cut in front of Salgado, who was driving, and tapped on the brakes. That's when he made a U-turn. Again, he has no idea that this is law enforcement. He's under no obligation to just allow himself to be robbed or murdered by random people. At that point, officers turned on their police lights. And as the vehicle continued onto Canal Street, they proceeded slowly because of heavy construction on the roadway. The men said that they were moving at no more than 5 miles per hour, barely crawling. They said that ICE then rammed their vehicles into the van, but that at no point did Salgado use his vehicle to hit law enforcement's cars. At one point, there was an ICE vehicle on each side of the van. An officer then jumped out of the vehicles, ran towards them, yelled stop, and began shooting wildly into the side of the van, hitting Salgado in the abdomen. His brother said he felt the force of the firearm as the agent pointed his gun towards his brother. These agents, by the way, were unmarked and unidentifiable. So the cars they had police lights, which obviously you can't just buy on Amazon. Everybody should have known exactly how to respond to this. And according to his son, he said, had my father seen an emblem of ICE or an emblem that says anything about a law enforcement agency, my father would have complied, he would have stopped. And I guess Ronaldo assumes that then the outcome might have been different. I don't believe that at all. I mean, why did they jump out of their car and immediately begin firing into a car that was penned in on both sides? I mean, why did they do literally any of the things that they chose to do? And as you sort of acknowledged, Cenk, none of the people that they're targeted enforcement looking for were even in the car. They just randomly stopped a random car, racially profiling, although the Supreme Court says that's totally legal. You can just racially profile people if you want to. And then they just casually murdered one of them, I guess, because they didn't immediately comply. There's more details, but what do you think?
Yeah, so look, first of all, even before I saw the facts, I know the context and the history of ICE under this administration, and almost nothing they said has been true. And so, you remember after Alex Preddy, some in the administration came out and said that he was a terrorist. And then you saw the video and he was protecting a woman, didn't do anything wrong. They had already taken his weapon from him, and then 6 thugs shot and killed him. And so And same thing with Renee Good. Oh my God, I was fearing for my life. Then you see the car is nowhere near the guy. She's already made the turn, and he shoots her from the side and murders her. So now they tell us, oh yeah, it was the wrong guy, but our lives were in danger after we cut him off with our car. So it doesn't look. Of course they're lying, of course. But John, what's sad about it is not only like all of this ICE stuff to scare the living crap out of not just immigrants but all Latinos, all Americans, try to divide us. But there's two other layers to it. One is to try to get everyone used to the surveillance state, and I would argue used to extreme violence from our government towards the people that live here. And they want to get you to get used to it and think it's normal. Oh yeah, the government sends in mass thugs and every once in a while they murder someone in the streets and that's normal. No, that's not normal. That's not what America is. So that is deeply, deeply disturbing. And then the surveillance state doesn't just come for the left, the right, immigrants, non-immigrants. It comes for everyone. The surveillance state is about power and how the wealthy and the powerful want to maintain and add to their wealth and power. And they don't give a damn if you're on the right or the left, Republican or not, or Democrat. So if you're on the right, and there are some that just keep excusing this stuff, it's absurd. It's absurd. Why would you want innocent people to die? Like even if you're vicious enough to say, okay, let's do mass deportations, and I don't care if some criminal or whatever gets killed along the way, you should care, that's terrible. But this is an innocent guy. So like, and is anyone really so dim that they think, oh no, I believe the government. I believe that all of those guys were in mortal danger, and if they didn't kill this guy, they probably all would have been killed by him. Come on, nobody believes that. So don't get used to this stuff. This is totalitarian maneuvers. And so we have to push back as aggressively as we can within the bounds of politics and rhetoric.
Yeah, it's absolutely grotesque. I mean, one of the issues in terms of how it will be interpreted is, first of all, Fox News won't even talk about it. All of this negative stuff, if you're in the right wing, you'll be in a bubble where you probably won't even hear about this story. And if you do, you won't think of him as an innocent person. First of all, you probably barely think of him as a person because of his racial identity. You interpret everything 100% through identity. And also he's not innocent, he is guilty of being a Mexican national. And that is enough for them. And then meanwhile, I as a person who I'm not afflicted by that particular sort of brain damage. I think about how all of this insane mass deportation nonsense, the hundreds of billions of dollars being spent, the people being gunned down in the streets, is to make us safer, make our streets safer, because they have to get the worst of the worst off the streets. And meanwhile, in this interaction, that gentleman went 35 years without committing a single crime. Meanwhile, those ICE officers couldn't go 3.5 seconds without murdering someone once they interacted with them. Who was actually making America less safe? The white van with the day laborers, the skilled home constructors, or the guys just waiting to plug someone in the belly if they get a chance and if they feel like they'll be protected? Not feel if they'll be protected, know that they'll be protected because they will be protected. We've got Mark Wayne Mullen, one of the dumbest meatheads in America. He'll be in charge of the investigation, which the family's pushing for, and they should. And I hope against hope, and I don't believe that they will, that they get that investigation. But I also know that it's been 6 months since Renee Good was shot in the face, and that guy's still free. And it's been about 6 months since Alex Preddy was murdered. And Jay, here's an interesting trivia question for you. Who murdered Alex Preddy?
That's a great question. I don't know.
It's been 6 months. Nobody knows who murdered Alex Preddy. Nobody knows a single fact about the killing of Renee Good or Alex Preddy that they didn't know a week after it happened.
Yeah, look, this is supposed to be our government. We're supposed to have a justice system. It's supposed to be fair. If you want it to be unfair, be careful what you wish for. Because again, the people who rig things to make them unfair are not Republicans or Democrats. They're not on the right or the left. They're at the very top. And they rig the rules for their own benefit and against the rest of us. So that is a perilous, perilous way to go. Guys, does this look like America to you? I mean, to me, when I was growing up here, and I'm a little bit older, in the 1980s, we used to see masked guys with heavy, weapons, etc., marching in the streets of what we used to call banana republics. These run by tin pot dictators. And now it's here in America, and we're the slowly boiling frog. And I don't want you to get used to any of this. Look, the last thing for me, John, is that on top of all of the things that are going wrong here in the case of immigration, in the case of taking away our rights, the surveillance state, and getting us used to all of this, is the loss of the value of life. Yeah. So in the old days, when anybody was killed, it was a big deal. Like, so for example, you know how many people were killed at the shootout at the OK Corral? And that was gigantic news. And we still know it today. It happened in the 1880s, right? And we still know it's in our lexicon. It's a thing that we're all familiar with because it was such a traumatic event back then for America. 3 people were killed. And they thought that was the most amazing, horrific thing that ever happened. Now we have mass shootings where, dozens of people get killed, and we got used to it. Our kids are slaughtered in their schools, we got used to it. And now our own government is shooting people in the streets and then not letting us know who shot them, who killed them. We have no idea if they're gonna come to justice. And 3 people have already been killed. Well, no, more than 3, but these last 3 have been so outrageous. This, Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And I mean, we just can't get used to this, John. I know. Because they're degrading the most important thing of all, which is the value of life. And if you're a Republican or a Democrat, that's a core thing we should all agree on.
Yeah, and super fast, I apologize for going on, but I do think it's important. They backed off of some of the more public, invasions of US cities after Renee Good and Alex Preddy. They even seemed to realize, oh, this is actually playing poorly. People are not actually getting off on the violence, in our city streets like we thought they would, which was good. I really hope that people get just as fired up and enraged about Lorenzo's death. And I fear that they will not. For one thing, he's a Mexican national. For another, he's not white. Like for some people, maybe it's a little bit easier. Renee Good's, mom, and it's on video. Alex Preddy's a nurse. I really hope that people are consistent. They need to flood the streets. I know there have been protests, like there were 1,000 people out last night, I think it was. And so I really hope that they do, because there should be as much national outrage about this shooting as there was there. Anyway, last thought.
Okay. Yep. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got a great story and of course a terrible story of corruption, but it is a spectacular case of it. We'll see how it plays out. Anyways, we'll be right back.
I've been right about everything. That's how I got to be president 3 times.
Bart, you're killing it today, man. I'm right about everything. That's why I was president 3 times.
I've been right about everything. That's how I got to be president 3 times.
He doesn't hear himself. It's amazing. Anyways, Free Meatballs and Linguini says on Super Chat, you've talked to a lot about how Israel has purchased our government. Why would you be surprised that Trump thinks he can purchase Greenland? You know what? That's a pretty good point. Like Trump probably thinks like, oh, I know how Israel bought me. I know how they bought Biden. I know how they bought Rubio. I know how they bought Congress. So why don't we just go buy Greenland like Israel buys us? That's a very fair point. I never thought of it that way. All right, we're on X now. We got a commenter, JM, and a bunch of numbers. It says, America, we need to decouple our currency from the war tax dollars made. We need to decouple from Israel, brother, and that's for sure. All right, YouTube members for the Young Turks, Dean Lofgren says, and Neanderthal is smarter than Higbee. Good and fair point. Cass King, 1991 says they are 100% immoral and unethical. I think referring to those cable news anchors for arguing for more war. Ronald Fan says, hey TYT family, and to you, Cenk and John, if Netanyahu and Trump drags us into a war with Turkey, we will be in a lot of trouble, and you, Cenk, look so much smarter than Jake Tapper, and John looks so sharp. Thank you, brother. We appreciate it, but it's not hard to be smarter than Jake Tapper. Although I'm sure that he thinks so highly of himself. Scott K wrote in, Trump's been drawing down the strategic petroleum reserve to keep the gas prices somewhat in check. Once he can't do that, gas prices are going to.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John with you guys. Rose Orozco, thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube. You're awesome and an American hero. All right, let's save you guys some money and get you some sleep. Chili Pad 2.0 is the way to go. So don't worry, this is not a new mattress, not any renovations. It actively cools your mattress just using water. Okay, fans move the air around, it doesn't help at all. But Chili Pad actually pulls the heat away from your body. It's precise, consistent comfort. It's got a new nightstand remote that senses when you get into bed and kicks on automatically. Dual zones mean you and your partner each set your own temperature, no subscription needed. You get a 2-year warranty, and they're designed and assembled in the USA. Get you some sleep. Your bed temperature can vary anywhere you want, between 55 to 115 degrees. You set it your way, your spouse or partner sets it the other way. You're both incredibly comfortable, that's what you want. And with the guarantees and warranties, there's no reason to worry. So visit www.sleep.me/TYT to get up to $255 off your Chili Pad 2.0 with code TYT. That's www.sleep.me/TYT. Free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial so you can test it out, dream big, and wake up better. Okay. So Kirsten Gillibrand is a Democrat, but she's a corporate Democrat. Well, what does that mean? We're gonna explain that to you in a minute. But she's got a rock star of a son, 22 years old, just happened to trip over $30 million to start a new business. And in fact, his business is instantly worth $300 million. And that happened the day after he graduated from college. Gee, I wonder if his mom being a US Senator helped him at all. Let's find out.
Yeah, no, he's just a dynamite kid, dynamite resume, I guess it must be. It looks like he's gonna be quite rich, and I was raised in a country that told me that rich people are better than me, and I believe it implicitly. Anyway, here's what his LinkedIn profile looked like, so you can judge. Maybe we're being unfair to his years of experience in private equity or whatever. He was a legislative intern at the US Senate. I wonder how he got that job. Anyway, government affairs, so again, tied to that, policy and macro, and then eventually gets into this private equity or stuff. All of these are 2-month or 1-month internships across the course of a couple of years. It's like summer stuff that he was doing or whatever. And I'm sure he had a great experience and met people that will be lifelong friendships or whatever, but we're more interested in the money he was able to generate instantly upon graduating. So he managed to secure $30 million for his new startup, American Perpetuals Exchange Corp, or APEC, I guess. And we're gonna attempt to explain what it is that is or does. The main thing you need to understand to help you process this is that apparently, starting a few years back, Wall Street wasn't abstract and based on hype and disconnected from reality enough. So rich people started coming up with like basically trading vibes and predictions about rumors and stuff. And whatever it is, they seem to make a lot of money off of it. So this is a trading platform that aims to list what they call perpetual futures, or perps, a form of futures contracts that allow traders to bet on the price of assets without holding the assets themselves. As opposed to standard futures, these derivatives don't have a set expiration date. That was too limiting, I guess. Anyway, his startup plans to apply for a license from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission to list perpetuals for equities and stock indices, not cryptocurrencies, according to a presentation filed with the SEC. So that doesn't mean that it's not sort of important vis-a-vis crypto. So perps have a unique significance in the world of crypto as they have no end date. As a result, they never require one side to hand over the commodity commodity in question. Again, it never needs to be tied to the real world in literally any way. Instead, money is made by correctly betting on whether the price of the commodity will increase or decrease. So if you have access to insider trading, this is another field that will be great for you. Since 2016, when they were first introduced on the scandal-ridden BitMEX crypto exchange, perps have become one of the primary ways that traders extract profit out of the crypto industry. They eliminate the need to actually own crypto, so anyone can indulge in the get-rich-quick culture of digital assets. They also offer, because they're perpetual, they offer 24/7 trading cycles, allowing users to constantly monitor the prices of their ever so volatile assets. As a result, global daily trading volume of these perps is in the billions of dollars, often far exceeding the amount of actual cryptocurrency that changes hands. Again, sort of makes sense. Crypto is supposed to take over everything, and it really isn't used in an actual physical way, practical way, more than it was years ago, but they've found some way to make money off of it. And all of this is being done. We could talk about the connections, which I'm sure when Peter Thiel gets involved, Cenk is gonna be very interested in that. But this dude just graduated from college. And he's starting up this entire platform and getting all of these investments. And neither his ability to put together the platform nor the money being invested in it has anything to do with his family, supposedly. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so there's two different issues here. Number one, overall, this is a terrible idea. Why? Not because like people won't use it. My issue is that I'm afraid people will use it too much. So why am I afraid about that? Look, I like gambling, and this is basically gambling. And I know the markets just well enough to think, well, that's an interesting option to have, to be able to bet in this way. But I also know the markets well enough to know why they crashed in 2008. And it was because of derivatives and collateralized debt obligations and how they had become unmoored from the value of the houses. What they would do is they would do bets on a package of mortgages, but not connected to the mortgages, which sounds actually very similar to this. Just take out houses and mortgages and put in crypto. And so when you decouple that way, then what you're left with is basically pure gambling, right?
Yeah.
And so that usually leads to disaster. And because it's one thing when, hey, there's a guy, he's got in over his head, he gambled too much, he lost his house, that's a personal tragedy, right? But when bankers do it with billions of dollars, collectively trillions of dollars, that endangers the entire US and global economy. And that's not a hypothetical, it already happened in 2008. And if you remember, we lost about 12 to 13 million jobs after that crash. So they play games. If they make money, they keep it. If they lose money, they get the corrupt politicians to bail them out, but you lose your job. So now, who are the corrupt politicians? Oh, look at that. That leads us to issue number 2, his mom. Look, I don't know anything about this kid, and he's probably a bright kid. He went to Stanford. He interned at Andreessen Horowitz, which is legendary firm in Silicon Valley that it does all these investments. So I'm sure he knows a lot of people. He went to the startup capital of the world at Stanford. So it's not like he's just, this is utter corruption and it's Jared Kushner pretending that he knows how to run basically a finance company when he's never run a finance company, or Hunter Biden being a Ukrainian gas expert or anything like that. But nevertheless, a kid coming out of college getting $30 million handed to him with zero track record, could that be related to the fact that his mom is one of the most pro-crypto legislators in the country, let alone within the Democratic Party? And John, my guess is yes, it has a lot to do with that, because once you invest into Gillibrand's son's business, then Gillibrand's family has an enormous financial incentive, not just the campaign contributions, which she's already gobbled up from them, but now money in their pockets if you loosen regulations on crypto. You do whatever the crypto industry wants so they could do this out of control gambling. Could that have something to do with investing in that particular kid? Come on, anybody who isn't a schmuck knows, of course that has a ton to do with this investment.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of questions to be answered, once it gets set up or whatever. Like, it's one thing to inject a whole bunch of capital into this thing to make it happen. That's very helpful to the young man. But then also, once they have the platform, are they going to be charging fees for trade on it? Like, like everybody's gotten, I think, rightfully like incensed by all the World Liberty Financial stuff and all the insane amount that the Trump family has been able to extract just in fees from people using the platform, knowing that if they use the platform, the Trump family gets enriched. So it's a great way to bribe the family and not break any laws. Are they gonna be able to do the exact same thing on this? Is this a way to effectively give Gillibrand's family money in a way that's not technically illegal? I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't like the proliferation of this though. And I do think that if you find Trump's, financial maneuverings and everything to be corrupt, which you should be mad when other people do it too. And I think that like all the prediction market stuff, the way that clearly they're using insider information about the beginning or ending of tariffs, raising or lowering, a ceasefire, all of that. They're betting crazy amounts of money on these prediction markets using insider trading. Donald Trump and the White House are the only people that can do that. I think it should be illegal so that none of these politicians or their families can benefit in that way. And it's clear that crypto is rife with not just outright cons, pump and dumps and stuff like that, but insider information is so easy to use. It's so hard to track literally any of this. And so is it any wonder that it's regulated as little as it is? In no small part thanks to the work of Kirsten Gillibrand. And she wants to do even more deregulation of this industry. Again, knowing that it is going to benefit her family. All of this, whether it's actually illegal or not, seems wildly corrupt and needs to be massively reined in.
Yeah, so two more things on that. So look, this is why we can't stand corporate Democrats or establishment Democrats, because they say one thing and then do the other. So if you listen to a Gillibrand speech, she'll tell you about, she's for the little guy and we're gonna get wages up and I'm so concerned about affordability and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, she's taking cash from every one of these corporations, right? So in this case, the crypto guys. And so she doesn't mean it, that's the thing. So mainstream media hides all of those facts from you. They never tell you that they actually don't mean any of their speeches. They're actually on the other side. And so then when you go, hey, I think we should primary Gillibrand and get a real Democrat, and they're like, how dare you? Did you see her speech? Her speech was so lovely. She did such a wonderful job of pretending to be on your side and then took all that crypto cash and totally betrayed you and deregulation of a very volatile industry, which is the exact opposite of the Democratic policies. You see how this is, like you would know all this and they would cover it all over cable news if we had honest news, but we don't have honest news in the national media. We have propaganda to hide all of this from you. So I want to give you a sense of how that wealth works, right? So you get a $30 million investment, that's an investment, the kid doesn't have the 30 million. But the valuation is 300 million, and he's the founder. Now the founder doesn't have the whole company because the investors get a bunch, there's other folks who get, but a founder, I mean, I'd be surprised, especially in the first round, if he didn't get at least 20%. That means if they sold the company tomorrow, the Gillibrand family would walk away with $60 million. You think she doesn't care about that? I mean, you'd have to be a schmuck on the level of a cable news anchor to think that she doesn't care about that. Of course she does. So is this going to lead to the Democrats secretly working with the Republicans to deregulate this industry while they're pretending to be on your side? Yes. That's what it's definitely going to lead to. So,
and just one other fact, Cenk, that is relevant to what you're saying. I just assumed because all of our elected officials are crazy rich, that Gillibrand must be crazy rich too. And we never know for sure exactly what people's net worth is. But Open Secret says that it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. At least it was like a decade ago. But she's not like she doesn't have $200 million or whatever. So like she's actually one of the poorest in the Senate, or at least was. That is a massive opportunity for her entire family's fortunes going forward.
Look, I'm guessing at the 20%. By the way, it could be higher, it could be 50%. It could be a lot of numbers, right? But let's stick with the low 20%. That's $60 million. That's a lot of money to anyone. And certainly to Kirsten Gillibrand and her family. again, you just have to be the biggest schmuck in the world or a national media reporter to think, oh, I bet it doesn't affect her decisions at all. And that's what they'll write going forward. The next time there's a crypto bill, they'll never mention this. They'll never mention how much money she took in campaign contributions from the crypto industry. And if you challenge her, all of the media will lie straight to your face and tell you, oh no, Gillibrand's a wonderful Democrat. Wonderful, only radicals would want to primary her. No, you should pick a Democrat just like her to, for bigger positions. And of course, they'll push for a Democrat just like her to be president.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's gonna have to be it.
Yeah. We gotta go. John, you're awesome. We appreciate you. Everybody check out Damage Report, 1 o'clock Eastern every single day, Monday through Friday, which isn't really every single day, but you get it. TYT.com, YouTube, everywhere that you can get Damage Reports. So when we come back, is Donald Trump trying to rig the 2026 elections? We have disturbing details.
I now know the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl. What contributions to the progressive cause are you most proud of? I mean, I don't have super high aspirations for a singular role that I can play in the movement or anything. I try to present myself as what I think that I am, which is a progressive man who is driven by I think, well-interrogated and well-organized system of values that I try to stay consistent on, and I demonstrate that that's the sort of life that a person can lead and be successful and be happy and all of that. And that should not need to be done, but there are so many people on the right that are trying to push men in the opposite direction that I want to be able to do that. Along the way, if I can get people to care about some topics that they wouldn't necessarily care about, or that for some men they might think that's not a topic that they should be focused on, that's definitely something that I relish doing. And along the way, I mean, we've been able to introduce people to a lot of candidates. That's been a big part of what we've done. Not all of them necessarily got in office. Probably most of them did not. And a lot of them you might not even remember their names. But it was great to be able to provide people the platform where they had the chance of making a difference. Obviously AOC and all that, but there's been a lot of great people along the way.
In the bonus episode for the members, we do some inside baseball. We're gonna look at John's desk. Nice little spaceship here. Nerd, but it is kind of look cool. Who has Legos? Oh no. He's taken apart a keyboard. Who has a mouse pad that's this big? He's got a dog with a nose that you could hang something on. You know what this desk screams to me? Nerd. And that's how we like him. We love Johnny Pie. He's got his own personality like everybody does at TYT. Come meet us all in the bonus episodes. TYT.com/team. David Soror, Nina Turner. It's Adam Green drop by.
Charlemagne.
Congressman, great to have you. It's great to be with you, Jack.
Your show is a great thing. You're informing people. A lot of the shows that I live on, my CNN, my MSNBC, and even Fox, and any of the other shows, NPR, they are so quick to decide that they know what this building means today.
The one thing that I hate that politicians do, they talk about the people they should be talking to.
Do they have any idea that they're the establishment and that they're hated, or do they not realize that at all?
People are so deeply in their little universe. I think it's very easy to not really question what you're doing.
Voters have a right to ask questions of any nominee, whether they're independent, Republican, or Democrat.
The system is duopoly that suppresses competition.
How is it the year 2024 and we're still like, maybe they'll talk about paid medical? Like, how is that like at one level it's like, good, what we're talking about it now. You're like, it's 2024.
And that's always been the critique, your critique of us is, well, you guys give good speeches, you put out good tweets, but you're not wielding actual power. Now we're starting to.
My favorite news platform by far. Well, it's not even close.
It's about a country and a principle, and that's what you and I both worked to achieve, and I'm so glad that at least half the battle has now been won.
If you want to go really hear what's going on honestly, you should tune into the Young Turks.
Thanks for doing such a great job. Please keep it up. Hang tough.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy.
Oh, I like making you happy.
I didn't know about that.
This is a happy experience. You're welcome, YouTube.
Join the Dragon Squad by becoming a YouTube channel member. Click the join button below or sign up on tyt.com/join to get access to fun emojis, a member-only chat, exclusive shop TYT designs, ad-free watching, and so many other amazing perks. Plus, you get bragging rights for being part of the coolest community on the internet and help us drive real positive change in the world. The Dragon Squad awaits, so join today.
I understand sports really well. Really well.
I played baseball, but it was sort of slow.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Elliot Morgan with you guys. Elliot's on Rebel HQ. You got to check that out on YouTube, obviously. So good to see you, Elliot. Unfortunately, we start with bad news, though. So, yeah. So let me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start that one and hand it off to you. Okay. So Donald Trump might be getting ready to rig the midterms. I'm definitely worried about it. And what he did today is disturbing and is potentially a harbinger of very bad news. So Elliot, why don't you tell us the whole story?
Yeah, so basically President Donald Trump went ahead and just kicked off all of the Democrats from the bipartisan election commission. Just to repeat that again, he kicked off all the Democrats from the bipartisan election commission, just in case you're like a fan of words, but it's called the Election Assistance Commission, or EAC, and here is more about what they do.
Established by the Help America Vote Act of 2002 as an independent bipartisan commission charged with helping Americans vote. The primary way we do that? By ensuring election officials have the support and resources they need. We help in a few ways. We craft and adopt the voluntary voting system guidelines, accredit test laboratories, and certify voting systems. Serve as the nation's clearinghouse of information and best practices related to elections. We also maintain the National Mail Voter Registration Form, which can be used to register to vote, update registration information with a new name or address, or register with a political party. And develop recommendations and standards that address the needs of voters, state and local election leaders, and other election stakeholders.
I mean, there you have it. I really love that music. I think everyone should listen to that if they're ever stuck in traffic. So historically, the EAC has been made up basically of 4 members, okay? So there's 2 that are Democrats and 2 that are Republicans. One of the Republicans resigned in April, and recently the other Republican was allowed to also resign. Since then, the 2 remaining Democrats have been pushed out. They received the following email from the White House. On behalf of President Donald J. Trump, I am writing to inform you that your position as Commissioner of the Election Assistance Commission is terminated, effective immediately. Thank you for your service. That is from the White House Presidential Personnel Office. So here is how the White House responded to a request for a comment from ProPublica. A White House official wouldn't confirm the specific actions taken, but they did say in a statement that the president reserves the right to remove individuals that may not be totally aligned with the important task of securing America's elections and ensuring every legal vote is counted. They also said the administration from the start has been working across all agencies and local partners to safeguard elections from fraud and abuse, and investing in a strong infrastructure to sustain that mission, especially in the midterm elections. So Trump will get to nominate replacements, which must be confirmed by the Senate. Meanwhile, Trump is badgering Congress to pass the Save America Act. So what is in the Save America Act, you ask? Well, there's a few key provisions. One is Americans would need proof of citizenship in order to register to vote. Americans would need to present a photo ID when they vote, and mail-in voting would be restricted. Now, obviously, critics of this act point to this is a solution in search of a problem. There's actually nothing really going on here, and it's actually going to disenfranchise other people, and you could consider it election meddling, but that's just my opinion. Cenk, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so look, let's put the SAVE Act aside because it's a little bit of a different issue, but in deconstructing this particular commission, does it help or hurt in stopping voter fraud, getting legitimate people to vote? Well, it definitely hurts because part of what they did, as you just saw in that video, is they set some guidelines and rules which prevent people from doing voter fraud. And it's bipartisan, so it's not like, oh, it's a Democratic plot and they're gonna get, because these are the kind of demagoguery that happens in other factions of the media, so our job is to correct that stuff. So in this case, it can't be any of the, getting the illegal immigrants to vote and all that stuff. No, there's two Republicans on the commission. Obviously, they never allowed that and haven't. So I shouldn't have to state that, but these days you have to combat the things that people say. They don't even say it about this commission. This is just a thing that came out of the blue, but they say it in general, right? So the second thing is that they generally help you vote, right? They make it an easier process, but a legitimate process you have to go through, right? And there's two reasons why Trump is potentially doing this. One is, generally speaking, they want less people to vote. Now, if you think, wait, Cenk, why? Why would they want less people to vote? If the Republicans are going to win or they think they have an advantage, wouldn't they want more people to vote? Well, there's two parts to that. Number one, historically, higher voter turnout helps Democrats. So Republicans generally don't want higher voter turnout. They certainly want it on their side, but they don't want it on the other side. And as a general thing, they try to bring down voter turnout, less voters. And that's part of why they don't want the mail-in votes. Now, if you're a Republican citizen, you might think, I'm heard from somewhere that mail-in votes is more ripe for fraud and I'm concerned about that. Now, I don't think that's true, but that's your legitimate opinion, right? That's your genuine opinion, I should say. But Republican politicians know that there's almost no fraud from mail-in voting. Right-wing think tanks like the Heritage Foundation have investigated it for decade after decade, and they just can't find any. Like the last time they did a report, it was about 0.0000006%, right? I try to keep in mind the 6 zeros there. So like infinitesimally small. So those politicians know that the reason they're against mail-in ballots is because they want less people to vote. So that's terrible, but fairly standard Republican politics. It's definitely very standard Trump politics. I'm worried about the second part. So I'm also worried about the first part, but I'm kind of used to it. The second part is he did an executive order earlier where he was trying to monkey around with how this, this particular body works. So now he's gonna get to appoint a bunch of people here, and God knows what rules he's gonna try to do and how he's gonna try to limit the voting and affect the voting. And the reason why they're more animated about it now than even normally is because the polling indicates the Republicans are gonna get their asses handed to them in the midterms. So Trump's like, okay, all right, let's fire the independent commission that was bipartisan and even and actually try to help people to vote, but in a legitimate way. I don't want legitimate. I don't want people voting. We're gonna lose. So now let's do something illegitimate. And firing them is the first step in doing that. So we've got to see what he does with this next. But Elliot, that's deeply concerning, especially because of the mindset that it seems like Trump and the Republicans think they can't win unless they cheat doing things like this.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of talk since he was elected for a second time, where everyone's been saying, yeah, he's going to try to stop the elections from happening, or he's going to interfere with the elections in some way. And I will say that at least on my account, I've been like, oh, that's probably not going to happen. That's a little dramatic. But stuff like this does make me worry a little bit. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, and I'm definitely worried about it. And guys, again, once you let anyone in power start monkeying around with the voting process, They're not going to do it just to help one side or the other. They're going to do it to help the very, very powerful, the people who can rig voting systems. And that is going to be against all of us. Protecting the sanctity of the vote is monumentally important. Otherwise, whatever little power we have as voters now will be completely taken away from us. So we can't let that happen as Americans. All right, let's take a quick break here. When we come back, Tucker Carlson versus Ben Shapiro. All right, back on TYT. Let's go to TYT.com members. So Jumpin' Jenk Flash, which is a hilarious handle, says, I encourage the right to keep running on this rhetoric that you're a stupid lib if you don't want to be involved in an endless war. I'm sure that will go greatly for them. Yeah, I mean, look, in that sense, they're helping the left and the Democrats a lot. I want to separate out the left and the Democrats. Democratic leadership is just so god awful, but because they're basically saying like, oh, if you're anti-war, you should be on the left. Okay, great, we'll take it. Asimov's Prophet says stocks are already bets, so you're betting on a bet. Sounds like a good way to launder money to his mom in the Senate. That's about the Gillibrand story, and so is this. M-Break says this cannot be legal. Seriously, this is either fraud or a Ponzi scheme. No, it is legal. Whether it should be legal is a different question, but it's not fraud or a Ponzi scheme. But it is, in my opinion, corruption. It's just a different form of corruption. So now let's go to YouTube members. Rose Orozco says, I love you too, Jenk. Thank you, and I was saying that because she gifted a subscription and she's a wonderful member. Nani Dragon says, Jenk has this weird pseudo-utopian idea of what America is or was. You know, Nani Dragon, that's actually a very legitimate critique of how I sound sometimes. But I don't have that as like, oh, we were like that in the 1880s or the 1980s. No, I know. There were terrible things back then too. But I put that up as a standard of what we can be and should be and what we were intended to be. Let's try to live up to those ideas. That's why I say it. We'll be back.
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
All right, back on TYT, Jenk and Elliott with you guys. By the way, on Monday, guest host Marjorie Taylor Greene. Ought to be interesting, okay? So that's coming up next show we have, 6 o'clock Eastern, Monday, July 13th. And then we have interesting guest hosts throughout the week. We also have Anna Mockler, which is very different than Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's for sure, and Dave Smith. So we got the entire spectrum, left, libertarian, and right, all here on the Young Turks next week. Okay, let's go to the next story. So Ben Shapiro decided that it was a good idea to take on Tucker Carlson again, and they had a war of words back and forth. I enjoy this a lot, and I think there is one clear winner, but let's give you all the facts and you can decide for yourself. Elliott, tell us all about it.
I would also agree there is one clear winner. Yeah, this is breaking news, folks. Two of the worst people that you know are in fact fighting. Pretty exciting stuff. We're talking about Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. So in one corner, you have a simp for Israel. And in the other corner, you have a simp for Russia or whoever he's on at that point. So feel free to pause this video at any moment, pop some popcorn, get ready, because we're gonna dive into some of the drama. Yesterday, Ben Shapiro put out a tweet criticizing the Tucker Carlson network for suggesting that the real reason for Graham Plattner's downfall is the establishment. So they wrote, Graham Plattner's fall is not really about sex or tattoos. The establishment cared so much about getting him canceled because he opposed their economic and foreign policy programs that serve the powerful and shaft average Americans. To which Ben Shapiro responded, hey, who would defend a far-left candidate with a Nazi tattoo, a deep and abiding hatred for America, and multiple rape allegations? I tried speaking as quickly as possible there, but I still can't speak as quickly as possible as Ben Shapiro. One day I'll get there. So we're gonna get into the actual substance of what they're talking about, but first let's get into more drama. So TCN did not take kindly to Shapiro's post. They responded, hey, who would defend the killing of children in Gaza? Yeah, that's a tough one. So kind of hit him with the Uno reverse card there a little bit. And I imagine this is what it feels like when my wife watches Love Island. But anyway, back to the drama. So Ben Shapiro clearly didn't handle this rebuttal well, though I do think it is worth noting that he did not actually deny what the accusation was there about defending the killing of children in Gaza. Check it out. So he said, hey, who would call Donald Trump the Antichrist, host a series of Hamas sympathizers and Nazi stands, praise Maduro and the Iranian mullahs, simp for Vladimir Putin, and promote conspiracy theories about Charlie Kirk's death, all while selling Indian-made nicotine pouches? You gotta love when they try really hard to come up with something like pithy and clever and it just doesn't quite land. At least that's my take on it. But I do gotta side with Ben here a little bit because there are far better things to accuse Donald Trump of. You can call him, rather than the Antichrist, maybe a felon. You could call him an adjudicated sexual assaulter, a Big Mac connoisseur. The list is endless, basically. But now when it comes to Graham Plattner and most things in life, I do think that there are two things that can be true at once. So I don't personally believe it was the establishment that took down Graham Plattner. I think it was Graham Plattner that took down Graham Plattner. But I also think the establishment, both Democrat and Republican, are absolutely celebrating it. They're doing victory laps constantly and shaming a bunch of people. And it's kind of fun, if not a little frustrating to watch. So because all the momentum progressive politics are actually making right now, this kind of downfall is exactly what they were hoping for. It is a godsend. But Plattner aside, I do think that this exchange continues to reveal exactly who Ben Shapiro is. Because whenever someone says a negative word about Israel, the dude just cuts them off. He completely stops talking to him. He won't go on their show. He deploys all the tired whataboutisms he can come up with. And it seems to me like he's just further isolating himself from his colleagues and his pals and maybe even his audience. So the word that comes to mind is butthurt, which is a word that I haven't used since high school. So let's throw it to you, Cenk, to maybe have an analysis that doesn't include words I haven't used since 2005.
Okay, so look, I wish that Tucker took one more shot, but I'll help him out here. Okay, so first of all, who wins? I think this one's clear, but I'm biased in this one, of course. I think that if you are in favor of murdering 23,000 children, you never win a debate. On morality, on decency. If you say, well, it's no big deal, they were just Palestinians and they had it coming. Yeah, no, you're the bad guy. So that's not unclear. So in fact, let's break down what Shapiro said first. He said that Tucker had a problem because he had a deep and abiding hatred for America. I would argue that that's a lot of Israel first, who are like, no, you have to give us all your money and your military. And if you don't, we'll call you all anti-Semites. I don't think that they like us at all. I think they view us as suckers. But interestingly, he also talked about, Shapiro did, about you can't support a guy with multiple rape allegations. Wait a minute, doesn't he support Donald Trump? Because he just said allegations. And remember, Graham Plattner's allegations, the allegations against him were never proven. And were very lightly sourced and manipulated by Politico to keep some of the facts away from you, manipulated by the New York Times to highlight the one GOP operative, which they didn't say was a GOP operative, who came out against him in the first accusation, and not highlight the other 11 that said that he didn't do anything wrong. But nevertheless, no one disagrees that they're just allegations, not to minimize them. But Donald Trump, in comparison, was found liable in a civil trial with a jury of his peers of committing sexual assault, let alone all the other allegations, let alone his confession on tape saying that he grabs women by the genitalia without asking. So, and right now, Ben Shapiro's like, Trump, I was an ever-Trumper before. He's got multiple rape allegations and liability, etc. But he's for Israel's wars. I'm for Trump, yeah. So I don't know that you have a lot of credibility to say those things that you just said. And then on the second round of attacks, the Indian-made nicotine pouches. Elliot, this is just a random one, but does he mean South Asian or does he mean in Native Americans?
I don't know. That was such a, I feel like he wrote that and was like, this is a banger. This is absolutely gonna shut this whole thing down. But I don't know that that works when you've just been accused of dismissing the killing of children in Gaza. But what do I know? I do think that like when it comes to Trump as opposed to Plattner in this situation, if we want to compare, you know, whatever apples to oranges, apples to apples, the difference I think maybe is like, the way I imagine it is the people on the right, I think, when they support Donald Trump, the most diehard MAGA folks, they don't really mind that Trump has all of these behaviors, whether it's him being an adjudicated whatever, sexual assaulter, whether it's his 34 felonies, whether it's those files that he is evidently in. I think that what Trump does for a lot of folks is he kind of like actually expresses the behaviors that they don't feel like they can express on a day-to-day basis. Whereas on the left, there's a little bit less of that. It's more like, no, you need to be the ideal of what we hope to be. So there's a little bit, there's a higher standard. I like to think, at least. But yeah, I think when it comes to Trump, when it comes to all the bad things he's done, the reason it doesn't work is because people like that. That's kind of his selling point, I guess, would be my one thought on that.
Okay, back to the nicotine pouches for a second. So if he means South Asian, it's hilarious because the Israelis are trying to infiltrate India as we speak. They sent Laura Loomer and a whole bunch of people. Oh yeah, you guys hate Muslims? We hate Muslims. Let's hate Muslims together. Give us money in your military to hate Muslims. So you should be careful about those talking points. So, or he might just be randomly racist against Native Americans or pretending to be just because he thinks right-wingers, he assumes right-wingers are racist. Like, oh yeah, he's Indian. So I don't know which Indians he's being racist about, but
I don't know what I've never. I mean, I don't know that I've ever had a nicotine pouch, but I certainly, if I ever did, I don't think I recall being like, well, was it Indian made? I mean, if that's the best you can come up with, I just think it speaks to how Ben Shapiro at the end of the day is a nerd from school who is just yelling at people because none of them want to be friends with him anymore.
Yeah, well, that goes to the final 2 points I wanted to make. One is, look, guys, we've discussed this before. In terms of who has got more right-wing support, obviously, since they're in media, they're not in elections, they're not politicians. If they were, you could tell by the votes to some degree. But in media, you judge by how many viewers they have. And right now, that's not close at all. I mean, Ben Shapiro's network is completely dying. He might have some podcast listeners left, but he has almost no video viewers left. Whereas Tucker Carlson is one of the largest shows in America. So the only reason, and I saw it again today, Elliot, like in legacy media, they're like, oh, you know, Candace Owens is being called out by everyone on the right. And they list a whole bunch of neocons that have a combined 13 people in their audience. So it's all a mirage. Ben Shapiro versus Tucker Carlson, that's no longer a real conversation in the real world. Not the left wing, not mainstream media. The right wing viewers have already decided they prefer Tucker Carlson by an order of magnitude, about 100 times more, right? And then comes the irony, which is my last point. If you notice there, Tucker Carlson was to some degree defending Graham Plattner. And so it's a topsy-turvy world these days where the political spectrum is bending and melting away. And so the reason that Tucker's defending him is because he's an outsider and more of a populist figure and against war and against Israel's influence. So that's where we have alignment, right? And Ben Shapiro, of course, hates anyone that won't bend a knee and swear allegiance to the country he loves, Israel. So that's why he hates Graham Plattner, not because he's a Democrat. Ben Shapiro would vote for, like, if you said, okay, you get to vote for, I mean, Tucker's such an obvious one. He would never vote for Tucker, but anyone who's a Republican who isn't 100% pro-Israel, maybe even JD Vance, even though I think JD Vance is, but JD Vance or Chuck Schumer, Shapiro would be like, Schumer, because he knows Schumer's gonna serve Israel 100%. He doesn't care, that's why he was a never Trumper. So like, Elliot, you see what I'm saying? It's kind of mind-bending because the neocons never cared about the political spectrum. Miriam Adelson and Larry Ellison used to donate to Bill Clinton before they donated to Donald Trump, right? And they were never Trumpers before they loved Trump, so they didn't care about the political spectrum. Now on the other end, we have left-wingers and right-wingers going, I don't care about the political spectrum either. I just want someone who's a real person and a real American who's gonna stand up for us.
Yeah, I think people are waking up to the fact that that's maybe an important thing, more important at least than saying all the right things according to whatever their donors say. But yeah, we'll figure out more about it, I guess, as things move forward. And we're gonna take a break and then come back, I guess, to some drama with Hasan Piker. So never heard of him, but looking forward to finding out who he is.
All right, so let's go to TYT.com. Solidarity Works, I'm reading these blind. Solidarity Works says, and one of the 2 New York Times article writers was a longtime intern/volunteer and a supporter of AIPAC. Oh, about the Graham Plattner stories. No, guys, the media is littered with former AIPAC workers. Wolf Blitzer is former AIPAC. Dana Bash and Jake Tapper act like they're current AIPAC. But anyway, seriously, it's no joke and no exaggeration. Tons and tons of former AIPAC people, former IDF, former Israeli intelligence, former this, former that. In fact, Barak Ravid, who breaks all the stories from Israel at Axios, is former IDF intelligence officer. Former. All right, Nerd Ferguson says, who wins in Tucker versus Shapiro? Nobody. Nobody wins, especially the spectators. Don Dada Dragon says, I'm gonna be honest, in the past I hated Tucker. Today I feel like I could crack a beer with him and laugh. I have respect for a man who can apologize for being a part of the machine. After all, I believed in 9/11 so much, I signed up to terrorize innocent Muslims. Welcome to maturing. Wow, that's a powerful statement, brother. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And of course, he was in the military. Here for the ice cream writes in on Twitch. Just had to share my subversary is on Saturday. 70 months. My birthday is on the 19th, 70 years. So thank you, Bart, for the tunes today. P.S. I live like I'm 7 and having a blast. I love that. Keep that up. And thank you for being a member for so long. We appreciate you. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much.
Tucker Carlson, a terrible friend.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Elliot with you guys. By the way, really interesting interview coming up on the revolution. It's with someone who is against the Israeli government, but a Zionist. And where are the lines? What is fair criticism, what isn't? We're gonna have a grown-up, adult, I hope, intellectual conversation about it. So hang around for that. I think that's gonna be really interesting. But first, let's go to this story.
I asked Hasan Piker and Jonathan Greenblatt on camera if they would sit down for a conversation with each other, with me moderating. Piker said yes immediately.
Wild idea. If we could broker it, would you sit down with him?
With Jonathan Greenblatt? Yeah. Oh, I would love to.
Okay.
I would love to have a conversation with Jonathan Greenblatt.
I'll pose the same question to him.
Greenblatt was a bit more cautious.
All right, well, that's Hasan saying happy to do it. A bit more cautious is an understatement. As you're about to see, Jonathan Greenblatt had 2 hilarious conditions for having this conversation. Elliot, tell us all about it.
Yeah, so this is how Greenblatt, when he was asked, responded to the idea of a debate with Hasan.
We've talked a lot about Hasan Piker here. He claims he's tried to sit down with you guys and tried to talk to you.
When
you
was
said
that?
Earlier, I don't know. He's claimed, that's his claim to it. Would you sit down with him? Would you sit down with him and me in a room and have a conversation?
Look, I'll sit down and talk to anyone. My only red line is if you dehumanize others.
Has he crossed that line?
Well, yeah, and saying that, Zionists, the things he said about Zionists, I think absolutely cross the line and create this space where it seems legitimate to murder Jewish people. So, if he would acknowledge the legitimacy of Zionism, the Zionists have the same right as everyone else, even people whose views we don't like. That would be an important step forward.
The offer still stands.
Now, where have we heard that before? Oh, right. Ben Shapiro has levied a very similar accusation against Hasan, and here is what we mean.
Piker himself is suggesting that he is not anti-Semitic, right? He is just anti-Zionist. Now, as I've mentioned before, this is a distinction without any practical difference. If you're calling for the destruction of the Jewish state, which exists in the here and now, you're not having a prospective conversation in 1920 about whether there ought to be a Jewish state in the Middle East or not. It exists. It's been existing for 80 years. You're not calling for the destruction of Pakistan, a Muslim-only state. You're not calling for the destruction of any of the dozens of other states around the world. You're only calling for the destruction of the Jewish state, which would entail the murder of millions of Jews.
Yeah, you just happen to be critical of this nation that your tax dollars go to fund constantly. So also one last thing, those clips of Greenblatt and Hasan were from a USA Today special feature on anti-Semitism. And here's how that feature was framed. So Nick Fuentes to Hasan Piker, click by click, anti-Semitism goes mainstream. Now, ironically, Hasan called out that sort of framing in his interview with USA Today. I think anti-Semitism is now, at least in the eyes of a lot of people, no longer seen as a big deal at all. I think this bigotry has exploded. And a big part of that is because anti-Semitism has been so cynically deployed and weaponized against all criticisms of Israel, accelerated in the last 3 years by institutions like the ADL. That to me, that sounds like a really reasonable response. I would love to see Hasan kind of hash this out with Greenblatt, but apparently that's not going to happen. Cenk, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so the preconditions are hilarious. I'll get back to that. I'll get back to Ben Shapiro. But first, we've got a poll on this. I'm curious what you guys think. Vote on tyt.com. What do you think charges of anti-Semitism against Israel's critics? What do you think about them? A, legitimate and concerning. B, largely BS. Okay. So we're not asking you if any anti-Semitism exists. That's obvious. Of course, some do. We're asking when it's regarding criticism of Israel. Are people genuinely concerned? Oh, I got so worried about anti-Semitism, or are they using it cynically to try to defend Israel? So I think the answer is clear, but I'm curious what you guys think. All right, now he says, well, I'll agree to sit down with Hasan Piker as long as he agrees ahead of time that I'm right, that Zionism is awesome. Well, that would defeat the whole point of the conversation / debate. Yeah, if you agree that I'm going to win the debate, then I'll have a debate with you. That's not really how things work, okay? He says, now he has to legitimize Zionism. Why does anybody have to legitimize Zionism? It's like the entitlement complex of genocide supporters like Jonathan Greenblatt is amazing. So they're like, no, you have to agree with me, otherwise I'm gonna say you're gonna kill all the Jews. Yeah, that's because you're a demagogue. And so Greenblatt doesn't mind that Israel murdered 23,000 Palestinian children. He's, never talks about that, but he says, oh my God, if you criticize Israel, then you must want to kill people. But no, we're for peace. We're not in favor of killing anyone. He, on the other hand, says, oh, 76,000 dead Palestinians, who cares? They had it coming. 23,000 dead kids, they had it coming. The Palestinians, in the famous words of Golda Meir, will never forgive the Palestinians for making us kill their children. And that's the mindset of a Jonathan Greenblatt. He thinks, well, of course we had to murder your children. You see how violent you are. No, Jonathan, I see the massive violence, the genocide, the slaughter that you're in favor of. So now let's talk about the trick that they do. They say, now if you say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist, well, okay, wait, that's a super vague phrase. First of all, Israel does exist, and it's in absolutely no danger of not existing. It has nuclear weapons, it has Iron Dome, it has a giant military. This is an absurd conversation. It's like saying, France has a right to exist. France already exists. It's a moot point. It's totally irrelevant. Why are we even having a conversation about whether France or China or India or Israel should exist? They already do, right? But then they go, oh, by the way, you know what doesn't exist? Palestine. So every anchor that goes along with this nonsense, like Casey Hunt, we will get to later in the show, but really every cable news anchor, the correct question is, does Palestine have a right to exist? Because it doesn't exist. Anyone with any intelligence at all would understand that's the obviously pertinent question. But since they're all liars and propagandists for Israel, they're like, ignore the Palestinians. Slaughter their children, who cares? Oh my God, anti-Semitism. I'm so worried about Israeli feelings. But their kids are dead. Shut up about their kids. Their feelings, are you okay? As you were slaughtering children, I was so concerned about your feelings, and that's what the whole country should be worried about, your feelings. No, I don't care about Israeli feelings. And that doesn't mean that you want, then the very last part of it is they go, okay, now you have to say, if you say Israel, you have to give like basically a loyalty oath to Israel. Zionism is legitimate, Zionism is great. Israel is the country that most needs to exist. But if you don't say that, that means you want to kill all the Jews. Oh, come on. No, it doesn't mean that at all. And you think Jonathan Greenblatt or Ben Shapiro think that it means that? Of course they don't believe that. They're lying to you on purpose because they want you to serve their beloved Israel. It is such an obvious sophistry. What a child's trick. But good news is, since all of the national media is on their side, they go, oh, I don't see it. Oh, you're saying, because you don't believe in Zionism equals want to murder all the Jews, I will write it down like a moron, like apparently Will Carlos did. So Will Carlos, what is this garbage about anti-Semitism? No, if there's real anti-Semitism in the world, by the way, one of the biggest anti-Semites is Jonathan Greenblatt. He doesn't care about the Palestinians. The Palestinians and Arabs are also Semites. They're Muslim Semites. That anti-Semitism he thinks is awesome. He's like, hate the Arabs. Let us murder their Palestinian kids, right? That's what you look like, Jonathan. You're disgusting genocide enabler, genocide supporter, terrorist supporter, terrorist sympathizer. That's what Jonathan Greenblatt is. That's what Ben Shapiro is, pretending that they care about bigotry. What a joke as they celebrate the deaths of tens of thousands of innocent people. They're the ones celebrating murder, endless series of murder of Palestinian children. But they say, but we're so concerned about Zionism, and you all have to bow down to these Zionists? You want me to bow down to a genocidal country? No, we're not gonna do that. Look, so since almost all of media lies on behalf of Israel, let me tell you the truth about our positions. And by the way, Ben Shapiro has said the same lie about me. Oh, well, Cenk Uygur doesn't agree with what Israel's doing, so he wants to kill all the Jews. That's an insane thing to say. Look, all right, I don't believe in lawfare, but these are, and I know they do. They love lawfare, right? But if anyone brings this up, I would love to go to Discovery. I would love to see if they have had any communications with foreign governments. I would love to see that, okay? So the reality, I'll tell you the truth. We are for peace. We want a safe and secure Israel and a safe and secure Palestine. We want them to both be independent, have all the rights in the world. We don't want any Jewish people killed. We don't want any Israelis killed. We don't want any Palestinians killed. We are for equality and for justice. We would like to stop a vicious, disgusting genocide by the Israelis. I'm not in favor of Hamas or Hezbollah killing innocent civilians in Israel. I'm not in favor of the IDF killing 100 times the innocent civilians in Lebanon, in Iran, in West Bank, in Gaza Strip. But Jonathan Greenblatt and Ben Shapiro love that kind of slaughter because it's for their beloved Zionist project of Israel. So don't tell me you don't love it as you defend it and are in favor of it and say that anyone who's opposed to that genocide is an anti-Semite, and you do all dirty, disgusting tricks, try to convince people that their lives are in danger. Not just tricks against us, but tricks against Jewish Americans. to try to manipulate them. Oh, you're all gonna die. Oh, Hasan and Cenk and all the Arabs and Muslims and Turks and Persians, they're all evil savages and terrorists. They're gonna kill you all. You better give everything to Israel. Give all your money to Israel. And I'm not talking about America. I'm talking about Jewish Americans. He's like, Jewish Americans, you're all gonna die. You better give all your money to Israel. Wait, I thought you were supposed to protect Jewish Americans. Why are you purposely lying to them? And by the way, a lot of people believe that, and it scares the hell out of them. And they're now panicked and worried that they're all gonna die any second now. And so they callously use things like the Holocaust and the pogroms, etc., to get their own supporters, and they target them with Israeli propaganda and go, you better be afraid for your life. Give me your money. Israel wants it, okay? No, you Jewish Americans shouldn't listen to that. Good news, they're not. It's another thing that Shapiro, Greenblatt, and all the others hide from you. 63% of Jewish Americans have the same exact opinion as I do. Against the Netanyahu government, we're for peace, with 2 independent states. Only a third of Jewish Americans support the disgusting Netanyahu government. But Greenblatt, who's a huge anti-Semite, smears all other Jews by saying, yes, all Jews love Israel and love their genocide and they love the slaughter and the wars and the dead children. No, they don't. You're lying. You don't represent Jewish people. You represent the zealots and the lunatics that are running the current Israeli government that 2/3 of Jewish Americans are against. But Greenblatt lies every single day to help the terrorist state of Israel. All right, I think I was pretty clear on that, Elliot.
I think so. I also just want to highlight too what you said about it being a trick, because you said that a couple times, and I think it's correct. Like, I think when for them, like they've run completely out of any kind of moral high ground, so they have to resort to rhetorical tricks, and that's what that is. Like, when you're going, does a state have a right to exist? We made all this up. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, who has a right to exist are human beings, and that actually exists. Now, states exist because we decided that they exist. So that is something that changes and has changed all throughout the course of history. So when they're doing this kind of thing, it feels like kind of like what Matt Walsh, when he's like, what is a woman? It's a rhetorical trick because they don't have any moral high ground to stand on anymore. And so they have to resort to this kind of stuff. So it's incredibly gross.
Yeah, and they do all of that lying and deceit on behalf of Israel so that they can continue land expansion in West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Lebanon. We have eyes and ears, Jonathan. You could lie all day long, and that's all you ever do is lie, pretend that you're running an organization against bigotry when you love bigotry against Muslims and Arabs, and you celebrate it, and in fact, you demand it. But we see Israel is in Lebanon. Lebanon is not in Israel. Israel just took 70% of Gaza and is bragging about it. We killed them and took 70% of their land. That's what Netanyahu is saying. But you love that fascist. You love him. And one day, Jonathan Greenblatt and Ben Shapiro and Laura Loomer and Mark Levin are all going to be in a museum somewhere. These were the Goebbels of our time. These were the people who tried professionally to get you to agree to a genocide and to fund a genocide. And they all made up a lot of excuses for why a genocide was such a great idea just because, well, they were just Arabs and Muslims we were murdering. It's after your people went through what they went through, all the pain and the suffering and these exact things, then you turn around and you help do it to others. You should be embarrassed and live in shame the rest of your life. You're going to a museum one day as one of the worst genocide enablers of our lifetimes. Okay, I'm definitely clear enough, so we can go to the next story. All right. Abdul El-Sayed, running for Senate in Michigan, called out Haley Stevens, his opponent, in a hilarious way. And of course, that got CNN anchors very mad. We have to destroy the Muslims. I mean, we're objective reporters. Okay, let's find out all about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so El-Sayed is a progressive running for Senate in Michigan. His opponent is establishment Democrat Haley Stevens, who always comes off super normal and not like she's tweaking out on something. So she's also backed by coincidence by a particular pro-Israel lobby. Not a lot of money, just, oh, look at that. Maybe a little more than I was expecting personally. So as you can see, they have spent almost $17 million on this incredible, charismatic establishment Democrat. Voters will decide between the two of them on August 4th. So here is how El-Sayed has punked her a little bit. It's incredibly funny and actually something I've never seen from a political candidate. So I hope there's more of it in the future. What you're about to see is a website that his campaign created called HaleyFacts.com. And here it is.
And in the United States Congress, I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future. And in the United States Congress, I will continue to fight for the people of Israel. I will continue to fight for Israel's existence. Israel comes to me in my dreams. I see Israel's future.
She has my vote. I'm sold. I don't need to hear anything else. Also, that clip just loops over and over. The button to donate to El-Sayed reads, "Please make it stop." And so let's see how Stevens responded to her new website.
How would you characterize the remarks you were making then, and what impact does this have now?
Sure. Look, I was standing with the Jewish community and a group of hostages who were in pain, people who had just gotten released from the Hamas tunnels. It was a very emotional moment. And I have been certainly very dedicated to standing by all Michiganders who have experienced pain as a result of a war that was started multiple years ago. And frankly, a war that Benjamin Netanyahu has mismanaged. And he has failed to bring peace. He has made Jews less safe here in America and around the world. These leaders, these bullies who abuse power, who are corrupt, they will not get a pass from me. I am a courageous and bold leader, and you bet your pants I will be in the United States Senate.
Oh gosh, man! Speaking of things showing up in your dreams slash nightmares, so apparently we're gonna show you one more clip from that interview just to give you an idea of exactly how the mainstream media is framing the issue of supporting Israel.
Congresswoman, I had Mr. El-Sayed on this program a few days ago, and I asked him several times if Israel has a right to exist. He would not say that straight out. What is your answer to the question? Does Israel have a right to exist?
Well, absolutely. And this is a stark policy difference between my opponent, Abdul, and myself. My goal and the work that I stand by is long-term peace and a two-state solution where people in Palestine, in Gaza, can live peacefully side by side with the people of Israel. It is deeply concerning that Abdul equivocates when talking about Israel's right to exist. That does not bring us closer to peace. That does not help this tenuous situation. I stand by a two-state solution and my long work to bring us to that goal.
Okay, so that sounds like pretty pro-Israel, right? But apparently, Stevens is not doing enough to earn the support of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So let's watch a clip from earlier this week.
Some American Jews in Congress who support Israel and support what you just said say that a lot of the actions by you and your government are making Jews in the United States unsafe. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, she's running for Senate in Michigan, said Benjamin Netanyahu has made us less safe. He has frankly put Jews in an uncomfortable position across the country. Have you?
Well, it's made
It's made her uncomfortable because she can't stand up for the truth. She's trying to probably excuse anti-Semitism.
She's not. I just want to explain. She's somebody who supports Israel. She supports funding Israel, which is diminishing big time among Democrats and even some Republicans in the United States Congress.
Yeah, not good enough, Haley Stevens. Okay, you're gonna have to bump up the pro-Israel rhetoric a little bit. But I have to hand it to the Democrats for finding another candidate who has, all of the charisma of a paper towel. Cenk, what do you make of all this?
Yeah, so the Mrs. Crypt Keeper says that she's in the U.S. Congress to fight for the people of Israel. And she says Israel comes to her in her dreams, and Netanyahu still calls her anti-Semitic. Because there's nothing you could do where they wouldn't call you an anti-Semite. But we'll get back to Netanyahu. Let's stay on Haley Stevens for a second. So I do believe that Israel does come to her in her dreams, and it dreams of her bank account getting larger and larger and larger, at least certainly for her campaign. For our audio audience who didn't see the graphic we put up, she's taken about $17 million from the Israeli lobby. So that's why it's hilarious, because 80% of Democratic voters are now against Israel. That's why when she's being interviewed by Casey Hunt, who's an Israeli propagandist, not meaning that she's Israeli, but that she does propaganda for a living for Israel, tries to set it up for her, like, oh, defend Israel. Look, this is great. Isn't this terrible? How Abdul El-Sayed, this lowly Arab, this lowly Muslim is criticizing beloved Israel. And she's like, well, no. I mean, I was really worked up, and I was, the hostages have been released. Why is she backpedaling? She's backpedaling because 80% of Democrats are against Israel because we have eyes and ears. Gaza's destroyed, it's leveled. Who are you joking? But to me, so I know Haley Stevens, she's deeply corrupt. She's definitely gonna fight for the people of Israel, not the people of Michigan. There's no question about that. If you're voting for Haley Stevens, you're basically saying, I'm giving my vote away to Netanyahu, to Israel, and I don't represent me, only represent Israel. You'd have to be, just the biggest sucker in the world to vote for Haley Stevens. But and that's why I think the Netanyahu thing might almost be a trick. Like, oh yes, I am against Haley Stevens. You should vote for Haley Stevens because Netanyahu is so mad at her. But I'm not sure that's the case. But I really want to say something about Casey Hunt, because she's done this trick several times now. Casey, Israel exists already, Palestine doesn't. I know you hate Arabs, I know you hate Muslims, and I know that you don't even think Palestinians are human, but they are. And they don't have a state. Israel already does. I know you don't know anything about news, you don't know anything about facts, but the correct question, if you were in any way logical and an actual reporter, would be, does Palestine have a right to exist? Since it doesn't, and why doesn't it? Because your beloved Israel that you love so much has been brutally occupying them for 58 years, Casey. Do you know that? Are you really that ignorant that you don't know that? Do you know that the Knesset voted to make sure Palestine never exists? Isn't that an outrage, especially after there was a genocide in Gaza? No, you're more worried about Israel existing when they have nukes and Iron Dome and the top military in the Middle East? Why don't you just hang a sign around your neck saying, I love Israel and I'm lying to you on their behalf, and I'm doing this obvious sophistry and propaganda where I pretend Israel's in danger of not existing, and I'm trying to distract you from the fact that Palestine doesn't exist because I think they're subhuman, I don't care about them at all, and I'm never gonna ask a question about them. Isn't that true, Casey? Isn't that true? Why didn't you ever ask, hey, does Palestine have a right to exist? Because you don't give a damn about them, because you're a racist and you're a bigot, and all you care about is protecting your beloved Israel. I hope I was clear enough. All right. Yes.
I think it was pretty clear. I can't get over the fact that she said mismanaged about Netanyahu. I just can't imagine someone saying that about a leader that committed a genocide, but I'm not Haley Stevens, so that's my only thought there, Cenk.
All right, okay, we're way past time. All right, thank you, Elliot. Everybody check out Elliot on Rebel Headquarters. Man, I get worked up because, yeah, all right, we're way past time. But turn off cable news, it's poison. It's meant to actually infiltrate your mind and get you to believe things that aren't true. Do not subject yourself to that psychological poison for no reason. The only thing they ever do is lie to you. All right, Anyways, come right back. We're gonna have a conversation about, I hope, a grown-up conversation about what we should actually do and what is in bounds and out of bounds in these conversations. We'll be right back. Welcome to the Revolution. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur. We're gonna try to have a grown-up conversation about Israel and Zionism and try to find out where the boundaries are. So helping me do that is Lawrence Winterman. He's founder and CEO of Peptiding's, CEO of Blue Ant Media, and he's got a Substack where he wrote about a Palestine and Israel confederation, which is an interesting idea. Lawrence, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Cenk. It's great to be here.
Yeah, no problem, brother. All right, so first, set the background for us. So, what are your views on Israel? And then before we get to what you think is in or out of bounds, just let us know that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Netanyahu is a war criminal. He and everybody in his cabinet should be in The Hague, tried for war crimes. Gaza is a genocide, and the West Bank is an apartheid state. I am a Jewish American. I have a complicated relationship with Judaism and with Israel. And I am just a guy, right? Like, I'm just a person trying to figure out how to navigate what we see happening in the world right now. As a person of Jewish heritage, I am incredibly disappointed. I mean, incredibly disappointed is too mild, right? I'm horrified at what I see. I have a show with my best friend, Dana Dubois. It's a Daily Whatever show. We talk a lot about generational trauma and kind of how the job of humans is to figure your own stuff out and not pass it along to other generations. And I think that's true of peoples and countries. And to see what is happening in Israel be so much a reflection of what happened to the Jewish people in World War II with the roles reversed is horrifying. And so I've written some pieces about how I feel about that and where I stand, because I didn't see a lot of other people standing up and saying some of these things out loud. And yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. How's that?
Yeah, so I greatly sympathize with everything you're saying, and I also empathize because being of Turkish origin, there was Armenian genocide, and I'm horrified at that. And I grew up with Turkish propaganda that led me to believe that it didn't happen. So I know how that works. I know how it could affect people. And so, like, for folks who want to protect Israel, but they're not like propagandists, and they can't quite get themselves to believe it, I totally get it. Okay, I lived it. So no one gets it more than I do in that sense. Now the Turks are a little bit different though, because they don't have that generational trauma that you're talking about. So we were more the aggressors throughout history and not as much victims as obviously as Jewish people were across the world, right? So since we've got that established and people understand that now, people that are watching, now let's talk about what's inbounds and out of bounds and how we talk about this. Because I read several of your pieces, but one of them I agreed with everything you said, like 100%. But then you got to the issue of the word Zionist and how to refer to people, and that's where I was like, it's not that even that I disagree with you. I just wanted to talk it through. So tell us what you're concerned about, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, so the piece you're referring to is called Zionist, and in case it isn't clear for folks, I chose that title to be provocative, and because I state really clearly in the piece, I don't like that word. I've never used that word to describe myself. It isn't something that represents kind of who I am or my mindset. What challenged me, the reason I wrote the piece and the reason that I named it that, is because that word has started to be applied to me against my will, right? Only because I'm a Jewish American. And so the objection there is essentially, well, one, I don't know that people understand the deep history of the word. And two, I'm willing to admit that words change, the meaning of words shift over time, and generationally they can mean different things. But I think we are trying to build a coalition of people on the left who pride themselves on listening to each other and understanding different points of view. And I think with, I'm also a gay man, right? And I'm fiercely pro-trans rights. And one of the things that I learned from my trans siblings is that names are important. What we call people is important. The way that people self-identify and having that self-identity reflected back to them is important. And a way that you show that you're an ally with somebody is by honoring, the pronouns, the name, and in this case, I think, the terms that people would use to identify themselves with. My concern, Cenk, is that we're somehow entering this space in American politics where the word Zionist is now being deployed as a shorthand for just Jew. And I think that is a slippery slope, and that we are, we're not listening to each other, and we're not trying to come to a place of understanding and nuance. And I mean, if ever there was a situation that required nuance, it's understanding the Middle East and Israel, Palestine, and the way in which those peoples and those places have massive histories with each other.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different angles that we need to discuss in that. But first, let's talk about conflating Zionists with Jews, right? Just like you, Lawrence, I hesitated in using the word Zionist for 2 3/4 years, right? So, but I've started to use it recently, and the reason I hesitated is because I was also worried that sometimes people were complaining Zionists and Jews, and sometimes they meant to conflate them, right? And that's a deeper problem, right? The reason why I started using it recently is because ironically, I want to make that as a distinction between Jewish Americans that aren't necessarily Zionists and people who are Zionists. Now, there's a second issue, which is what do we mean by Zionism, right? But before we get to that, do you see why that's an issue? Like that a person meaning well thinks, well, okay, but what am I supposed to call the people who are still supporting the Netanyahu government, the genocide, etc.? And then wait, you're blaming me for calling them a thing that they call themselves. You kind of want to throw your hands up and go, okay, what do you want me to do, brother?
Right, no, it is, you're absolutely right. It is a delicate situation, right? I liken it to, if you were trying to describe Americans, you wouldn't just instantly reach for the term MAGA unless you were specifically talking about people who are ardent followers of Trump and everything that MAGA now means and implies. I think if you're talking about the sort of crazy right-wing followers of Netanyahu, Likudnik is a perfectly good word. It's a word that gets used in Jewish circles to describe somebody who is a member of that far right party and willing to follow Netanyahu no matter what kind of horror he is choosing to keep himself out of jail with. My point simply is that Zionist is not a word that I think people should use to describe an American Jew or a Jew who's hey, the funniest thing about this, Cenk, is that I didn't get bar mitzvahed, right? Like, I'm the last dude who expected to be standing here, like holding a sign that says, Jewish, Zionist. This is not a hill that I ever thought I would be on with the possibility of dying on. I just think that there is, and I take your point that you want to use something to describe the people who are pushing for this maximalist greater Israel vision that is absolutely antithetical to peace and to the continued existence of the Palestinian people. Maybe we need to invent a word. I think, for me, I'd rather be called an American. Honestly, I'd rather you call me practically anything other than Zionist. It just doesn't embody kind of what I believe. And also, I think it is dangerous that it is becoming a word that is being applied with a broad brush, I guess is the point that I'd like folks to take away.
So first of all, Likudnik, the problem is nobody knows it. And there's a second problem which we can get to later. So I started using Zionists as a distinction from Jewish people because, as 63% of Jewish Americans, I probably say this more than the rest of the media combined, 63% of Jewish Americans are against the Netanyahu government, only a third are in favor of it. And so lumping them in with, the worst crimes of Netanyahu is a terrible idea and is just factually incorrect, right? So, but what do you think Zionism actually means? Because there's also a potential disagreement there, because if it means just that today you think the state of Israel should exist and not be wiped out, okay, well then under that definition you could call me a Zionist, right?
Sure.
Or do you mean, yeah, you were in favor of setting it up in the first place and you thought it was a terrific idea and all the things that have happened since were necessary and reasonable? Well, then I'm definitely not a Zionist. So what is a Zionist?
In some ways, Cenk, I kind of think you're asking the wrong guy, right? If we're debating whether the formation of Israel, was legal and proper and handled in the correct way, man, finish your time machine. I will go with you to go talk to Sykes and Picot and Churchill and everyone involved in the partition and the British Mandate. Like, clearly sorry, I was about to swear on your show. They messed that up royally, right? Like, there were promises made to the Jews, to the Palestinians, to the Arabs, to the French. None of it was communicated internally within the British Empire, apparently. And, promises were made and not kept across the board. I agree with you. The foundation of the nation state of Israel, is full of moments that if we could go back and relitigate, we would. But it exists. It's there. It's been there for 80 plus years at this point. I don't think talking about disbanding Israel as a punishment, even for the current crimes of the Netanyahu regime, is a serious path forward. I think anyone suggesting that, probably needs to have a think about the implications of everything that they're saying. After World War II, through the United Nations and through the agreements that were made, through the global community, we agreed that we would differentiate, an abstract land and people and governments in 4 levels, right? There's the leader, there's the regime, there's the people, there's the land, and those things are connected, and there are ways in which they are not connected. Is it possible for there to be an evil leader in charge of an evil regime doing horrific acts? Absolutely. Should the people be punished for that? No. Should the land, be subsumed or taken away? Part of what we determined globally through the United Nations after World War II is that that would never happen again, was that there was never going to be a circumstance in which a nation was going to be wiped out of existence. And so, I think that if we were arguing Sykes-Picot and and Balfour and those kinds of things, I'm with you. If we're looking for serious solutions as to how we move forward, not just as Jewish people and Muslim people and Palestinian people and the world kind of writ large, I think there are other conversations we should be having. And for me, after writing the essay, one of the things that I realized is that I wasn't leaving people with enough hope, and I needed hope. And so through that, the research process, I found the Holy Land Confederation Plan, which I write about in my essay, the Yobutsugi Plan. And through that, I found A Land for All, which is a grassroots, co-led Palestinian and Jewish-Israeli organization advocating for a confederation.
Yeah. So I want to come back to confederation in a minute because I think it's an interesting idea that we should talk through. But two more things on this. So we're both agreed Zionists is kind of super vague at this point. They're good folks who, don't want Israel to be wiped out, thought Israel should be formed in the first place, but are totally against the genocide and against the wars and all of that. And they would call themselves Zionists. And then there are others who would have an enormous range of opinions that call themselves Zionists. So I'm curious, do you think that you're a Zionist?
I think, look, if you ask my grandmother, right, God bless her, if you asked her what she was, she'd say that she was a Zionist, because to her, the word meant a person who believed that the nation of Israel should exist, right? I understand that over the course of generations, that word has a spectrum of meaning behind it now. If I ever considered myself a Zionist in even the slightest way, it was in that, kind of far left, sure, Israel should exist next to a free, sovereign, safe, independent Palestine, both peoples, owning their land and being self-determining and living, in equality as much as is humanly possible. That is, I think, what the term meant to a generation of Reform Jewish people in the United States. Is that what it means now? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that's the way that it's being used. And so, again, as an American citizen who can think of a number of other adjectives to describe himself other than Jewish and certainly other than Zionist, my bigger point was I'm worried that we are using labels as a way of finding a purity test in the Democratic left. And that is not, I think, the thing that we should be doing right now. I think we need to be figuring out how we can unify. I think that the vast majority of people in American Jewish communities and on the left see that what is happening in Gaza is a genocide. Maybe they're uncomfortable with the word, but I don't care. Like, I have the evidence of my eyes, and I'm comfortable calling it a genocide. I'm comfortable calling it a Holocaust. It needs to be stopped. And I would far rather work on a way to stop that together than on debating what word should be used to describe people.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but I'm going to stay on it for one more question. The reason is, Lawrence, because that it's also being used as a cudgel to attack anyone who's criticizing Israel, right? Oh, you used the wrong word, the wrong label, you're an anti-Semite, you should never be allowed to speak again in media, etc. right? So that's obviously also a phenomenon. So last thing on this, and then we'll move on to the Confederation idea, a very interesting one, is, look, I used to say Israel first, and then, everybody objects to every phrase, right? And then, right. And so lately, it's hard to fit it into tweets, right? But I'm going with radical Zionist.
Yeah.
But like, we got to call it something, because you can't just say, that's what words are for, right? We're trying to describe a group. And for me, I'm desperately trying to make sure that people call it the proper thing and not Jews, or not mean all Zionist Jews, whatever it is. You see what I'm saying? So what's a phrase that makes sense for you? And I know we're just two people talking about it. We don't represent everybody.
As a word nerd, I think radical Zionist makes a ton of sense, right? Like in the same way that we would say radical MAGA and understand that we were talking about not just sort of your run-of-the-mill right-wing MAGA person, but someone who is willing to do horrible things like support ICE and, raid the Capitol on January 6th and commit atrocities in the name of Trump. Yeah, I think radical Zionist describes those people who would support Netanyahu, and who might actually believe in something like a greater Israel, which is, abhorrent to, I think, rational thinking people.
Yeah. All right. Well, we settled it. Okay. Good. So I'm sure the entire country will adopt it.
Right.
So tell me about the Confederation idea.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposal, right? And I think one of the things that intrigues me about it is I've long been a two-stater, right? Like I in my essay, I talk about weeping when Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated in 1995. I honestly believed in the two-state solution and that he was, through the peace process, somebody that could actually deliver on it. By the way, I also remember very shortly after Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated, a person named Benjamin Netanyahu, who was then, I think, a colonel in the military or maybe an MP in the Knesset, suddenly appearing on cable news on CNN back in 95 and somehow being gleeful that the two-state solution, in his words, was dead. Draw whatever conclusion you want from that, but I distinctly remember that episode in our history. I've known that guy was bad news from the beginning. I think that, the two-state solution, if you talk to people on the ground, if you really listen to both Palestinians and their lived experiences and Israelis and kind of what they see on the ground around them, it seems like the two-state solution is dead. It seems like people are no longer believing that is a viable alternative. And similarly, when you talk about the one-state solution, a single country from the river to the sea in which everyone is equal and equally enfranchised. There are people on the Palestinian side who worry about what that would entail, what it would look like after several generations. There are people on the Israeli Jewish side who are similarly concerned. And so I was looking for ideas that might be in any way viable. And I came across this plan called the Holy Land Confederation that was put together by Yossi Belin, whose name I may be mispronouncing, and Hiba Husseini, both of whom are kind of old hands at the peace negotiation process. And the two of them together basically put together this plan that says, let's imagine that Israel is Israel and Palestine is Palestine, and it'll blow your mind, but there's an open border between them. Much like in the European Union, it doesn't matter if you're a citizen of Israel or a citizen of Palestine. If you're a citizen of Palestine, you vote for the Palestinian parliament or legislature. You vote for the Palestinian president or prime minister, whatever they so choose. If you're Israeli, it doesn't matter where you live. You vote for the Knesset, people in the Knesset, and it abstracts the border and sort of where you vote from where you live. It kind of, I don't want to say it solves the settler problem, because the settler problem is real and gross. There are crimes being committed there, people living in places that they explicitly have been told they shouldn't live. Clearly, I have opinions about that. But essentially, you could imagine a scenario where those people stay in their settlements. They're living on Palestinian land for which they would pay rent, for which they would pay taxes and garbage service and water service. But they would be Israeli citizens and they would still vote in Israeli elections. And similarly, there could be Palestinians. And in this plan, it allows for full right of return. Palestinian refugees who came back who would be able to live in traditionally Palestinian places that are not obviously now Palestinian. And so it kind of solves the issue of where people live and where they vote. And for things like Jerusalem, it essentially says Jerusalem would be shared, and it would be the capital of both countries, and the greater Jerusalem area would be managed under a under a consortium, essentially co-managed between the two peoples. And what's interesting about it, and there are a million reasons that this might not happen, probably won't happen, but it is a glimmer of hope in a situation in which currently there is none. And what inspires me is the idea that you have something, originally, I think originated by these two people, now carried by a project called A Land for All, which is co-led by an Israeli woman and a Palestinian woman. They are co-executive directors of this project. They were recently interviewed by Ezra Klein in the weekend, or in the New York Times 2 days ago, I think. And it's a fascinating conversation between the two of them, right? Because you can see these two women who work together being careful about the way they talk about certain aspects of the plan out of this massive amount of respect they have for each other. And that is so inspiring because it is so very different from what we see on the ground in front of us right now.
So two issues with that.
Sure.
So it's, first of all, it's a lovely idea. I wish that would be amazing. Right. I'd take the deal instantly. And I get it, it's a little bit like the European Union, as you explained in your piece. And that's a good way of thinking about it. Of course, the issue is the Israeli government, right? So, and to be honest, the Israeli population at this point. First of all, you get the right of return. Well, those Palestinian homes and property are now being lived in and lived on by Israelis. So they're not gonna give up their house. They're not gonna give up their property. Now the Palestinians say, but you literally stole that from me. And they're gonna say, so what? And we don't believe that, and we think that God promised it to us. So they're never gonna agree to it. So I don't know how we solve that. And then this bigger issue is Israel's never gonna allow any of this because they've gotten their population to believe that if you're next to a Palestinian, that he's gonna instantly murder you, right? And that if you live with the Palestinians, they'll kill you all. And they've been saying that propaganda now for over 70 years. And so can you imagine a scenario where the Israelis would live in peace with the Palestinians? I can't imagine it. So that's why, I mean, it's a beautiful idea, but it sounds a little utopian. I'd rather separate out the two, so I haven't given up on the two-state solution. Maybe I'm the only one, but do you see what I'm saying about the issues in the Confederation plan?
Oh, Cenk, I think, my friend, you and I are very similar. I think we're both problem solvers, and it is absolutely natural for your brain to immediately go to the ways in which it couldn't work, right? I think given the current situation, it's inevitable that literally every person who encounters this idea is going to start there. What I love about it is that it is an aspiration. It is aspirational for a way in which two peoples could live together and view the land as a shared resource to be tended together. Is that Pollyanna-ish? Absolutely. But I would rather have some hope for an endpoint that looks like peace than a two-state solution that looks like an Israeli technocracy that is going to manage the movement of people because, I don't know, they're microchipped or, carrying, passports everywhere they have to go every time they move from, street A to street B. I hear you. I understand. It is, easy to laugh off as a fantasy. Again, the piece that inspires me is that it is a grassroots movement at this point, and that it is growing. It is something that has slowly been winning converts and influence. So, maybe I'm too much of a dreamer. As much as I can get stuck in the 900 million reasons why it wouldn't work, I'd like to believe that tiny steps could be made that could make it more likely and could make it possible.
Well, then at the end, I'll say this to the audience. Look, right now, we're obviously very, 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 very far from peace. But at a moment that we get close to peace, that's when a vision like this becomes super relevant. Because right now we don't have the conditions for peace, but if we all hope and pray and do all we can to try to get to a point where we do have a pathway to peace, and in that pathway, this is certainly an idea that should be discussed. So I appreciate it. Lawrence, I appreciate you in every way. Everybody check out his Substack, really thoughtful. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Cenk. Pleasure to be here.
All right, good to be with you, brother. All right, guys, it's a Friday, so I was gonna just go home. But I'm gonna do a 5-minute bonus episode, 5-10 minutes, because a bunch of you wrote in about this interview and I wanna address some of your points. So everybody, if you're not a member, hit the join button below on YouTube or tyt.com/join. Let's come back and talk about the ideas in this interview for about 10 minutes. We'll be right back.